All right, Colin. So it is June 30th. E3 was about 2.5 weeks ago at this point. About maybe 3 weeks by the time this gets posted. And we're back. We're back to talk about E3. So a little late, but we've been given some time to let it sit, let it cook a bit. Some of our thoughts and takeaways. Colin, this was a weird E3. I think it's probably the best way to describe it. For several reasons, many of which we'll go into. But first, Colin, if people out there are first-time listeners, what is this show?
This is Crossplay with Collin and Curtis. We are just two guys who love video games and talk about the video game industry. We get excited. We like believing in things. We enjoy possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Just all of those things in the video game sphere. Sometimes movies, TV, stuff like that.
We love nearly everything.
Oh, there we
right?
go.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. And also, Colin, as you should always remember, tomorrow is in your hands.
Yes.
So, let's get started. Colin, I want to, one thing that I think we're going to be keeping track of, because one of the things about this year's E3 was we're in this awkward state where people are prepping for new consoles.
An awkward state of play, some
An awkward state of play, yeah. And so we're prepping, we got developers prepping new games for new consoles, and a lot of this stuff there are things that people aren't ready to talk about yet, because even though Sony and Microsoft both have given some spec details and have talked about some kind of large and more vague concepts of what they're planning, we haven't really got to the meats and potatoes of it just yet. And so there's a lot of I think there's a lot of things that while publishers were ready to talk about them, they weren't ready to show them. And so Colin, as you mentioned to me before, there was a lot of stuff at this year's E3 that I think your takeaway was, I don't know what this is.
Yes, exactly.
And so Colin, I think for today's episode and today's episode only, we're introducing a new segment called What Is That?
Pretty much. It's a lot of we'll call them out, or I'll call them out, when we get there, but it's a lot of I don't know what this is, and do I even care to see more?
Yeah, and I think that's an issue maybe we'll get into a little bit during the show, is that this year definitely felt a little bit more egregious on the here's a brand new thing, here's a CG trailer, and we're not going to say anything else about it.
Yeah.
For reasons that are probably obvious. I think that a lot of those games are next-gen games, or cross-gen at least.
Yeah.
But I think even still, it's good to have some information, and it's good to at least know a little bit about what we're getting ourselves into.
Right.
And there's a lot of things that we're guilty of not doing that, of not giving us enough. So, with that said, let's get into it, because there is a lot to go over. I think we're going to approach this a little bit differently. We're going to trim the fat on some of this. Typically, we are recording days after E3. Not so 2019. So a lot of this stuff has been talked to death. So we might skim through some things that we've already discussed in the past or have already talked about, and mainly try and focus on what's new. What were the new announcements? Yep. So Colin, to kick things off, this is the first thing we saw Saturday, June 8th, I believe. EA Play. We knew going in kind of what their plans were, but we also, I think it's fair to say, you and I both expected some pretty great things from this game, and that's Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order.
Yeah, so I guess I'll say this. Did you watch the full behind closed doors demo that they released online?
So I saw that came out a couple days ago. I haven't had a chance to watch it.
Okay.
But I have heard that it shows more of the kind of Metroidvania aspects of that game.
Yeah, I've seen parts of it, and I just don't understand. This is kind of the big thing with the Game Informer reveal, that it's kind of like this Metroidvania type thing, but what was shown at EA Play specifically was just a very linear kind of third-person action game.
Almost linear, but also something that looked very easy. Did not they've talked up their combat as being I think thoughtful is the word that they used, which is cool. Like, that's a really interesting word to use to describe combat in video games. So that had me excited, but I think what we saw, at least at EA Play, was probably a game that was set to easy difficulty. Someone who clearly had played it some time, didn't show off a lot of the different abilities that you might have at your disposal, but just kind of was taking out stormtroopers like it was nothing, and with the exception of a couple fights in that sequence, it looked kind of uninteresting.
Yes, and yeah, just even the linearity of it, for sure. Like, if you would have told me after watching that hey, the guy who's directing this game also directed God of War 3, I'd be like, not surprised at all, kind of thing. But I actually kind of liked what they showed. I know a lot of people were pretty down on it. I think the behind closed doors demo helped it out a lot as well, with them releasing it pretty soon after.
I do want to see that. I think the thing that helped me is I went back and watched it a couple times. I think that like Saturday night, and as I watched it a couple times, I started noticing things I didn't like the first time, and so that definitely helped. There were some things that's like, oh, that's interesting, or oh, okay, like this looked a certain way when I was watching it in the moment, but now that I've gone back, I can kind of see what's going on with greater context. So like this actually does look cool. And then the other thing was also just listening to people who had seen it behind closed doors, and they were talking about like, oh, what they showed us actually was this, or it looked quite different, or they showed us this part and this is what you were doing and it looked a lot better.
I also, just some of the highlights, you can do the basically what I just call the Kylo Ren holding the laser shot, like, freezing it in
that
air.
Stuff is cool. Yeah.
You can like pick up a guy and like put it like basically shoot him with his own bullet. They do have something Guerrera. I can't remember his name.
Saw?
Yeah, something like that. People say it so fast. I'm like, I don't know what you just said.
There's a lot of Star Wars names.
Forrest Whitaker's character from Rogue One, and that is Forrest Whitaker too.
Yeah, surprising. Like,
yeah, I thought I was kind of surprised by that too. Yeah.
I think part of me going into this reveal was kind of hoping that they would steer away from including Star Wars characters, but that's one I'm kind of okay with.
I'm okay with that too.
It's like,
yeah, absolutely.
It's Rogue One. It's not something that, it's not really a character that people talk about very often. So I kind of appreciate it. I appreciate going for a character that makes sense in that time frame.
Yeah.
But isn't like a fan favorite necessarily.
Yeah. Kind of. Did you ever end up playing the Battlefront 2 single player? Okay, because that was just a really shameless excuse to rope Star Wars characters into, and they didn't do it very well. And even with that, I'm just like, I hope Han Solo just doesn't show up at some random part in this, or something like that. Like, I don't know if they're like, oh, I got some smuggler doing something, like, oh, maybe that's kind of clever, and that alluding to it. But yeah, I don't want Lando to start showing up and Fallen Order, that kind of stuff, which I think Respawn, I don't want to say use the word smarter, but I think they'll kind of try to take it in their own direction a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, just despite the showing, and I think, I don't know who that falls on, like who decides, like this is what we show publicly, this is what we show behind closed doors, like who knows, there's probably a handful of people who make those decisions. And again, this is me having not watched that new footage that they've put out.
Yeah.
Although I'm excited to, like I'm sure it looks great.
Yeah.
It is weird. That's the game that like I don't know if it's EA, I don't know who it is, but I remember in the moment like watching it and thinking, does this look bad? Does this look like what? I don't know what I think of this.
Yeah.
And maybe it was my own fault for like my expectations of that game were pretty sky high. I still have faith in Respawn. Like I'm sure it's gonna be great, or I hope it is. But yeah, it was a weird demo, and I think perhaps a weird demo to set the stage for a weird E3. So before we move on to the actual like start of the press conferences, EA Play they did have Apex Legends. They talked about Season 2 a little bit.
Yeah.
I left the house immediately after the Star Wars thing
and
went to like an art festival. But the Apex Legends stuff, The thing that, I mean, if we wouldn't spend any time on it, they put out a trailer for Season 2 this past week. And Colin, I want you to enlighten me, if you can, on what is the deal with these monsters? What's going on here?
So the monster thing I'm not 100% sure of, because I guess I didn't read too much into it at the time. But apparently, like, it's maybe a thing they'll reveal later on. I still don't know if it's official, like, what's happening with them. But we did get the new character announcement, which is Watson, which is a gal that's more of kind of like a trap character. They compared it a lot to the character Caustic, which is, kind of like a territorial-based character where you can set up laser traps and stuff like that. Season 2 also has a new gun, which is the L-Star, and if you know why I remember that, it's because it's a Titanfall 2 weapon. But so they're basically kind of taking Titanfall 2 weapons and putting them into Apex Legends. So I was like, I was watching it with a friend, and I was like, oh man, oh, okay, new weapon, I'll see what they do. And then like they started showing this weapon, and I was like, is that the L-Star from Titanfall 2? And I'm like, yep, that's it. Like, that's the new weapon in the game. And I was kind of, it's fine. It's, Titanfall universe stuff. Would have liked to seen something a little bit more new. But that's really all they talked about was the new character, new weapon, and I guess there's going to be a ranked mode coming. Yeah, they're going to say new mode, but then it ended up being ranked, and it's like, I'm not really into that kind of stuff.
And I think one thing that you might find over the course of even this podcast is one good way to get me at least my eyebrow raised on a first-person shooter, or shooter in general, third person or otherwise, is to have monsters in it.
That's true.
So yeah,
I'm
wait
curious for that Godzilla crossover. Maybe.
I still need to see that movie. Anyways, I'm curious. I'm curious to see what this monster stuff is about.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah.
So anyways, so let's talk about Microsoft. They their press conference was as per usual Sunday afternoon. A little over 90 minutes. I don't think it quite hit the 2-hour mark that people thought it might.
Yeah, it's like 140 maybe, hour 40.
So this was a beefy show, and for all accounts, a solid press conference for Microsoft. I think, and we can talk more as once we get through everything. I think expectations of their conference were probably a bit higher than they should have been.
I agree with that.
I'm sure we are guilty of that as well. So yeah, let's just dig into it. So, for the record, basically anything that we've already seen before, anything that was like, here's a new trailer for it, or here's without like much new information, or here's a game that we've seen, now it's coming out this day. We're probably not going to spend any time on it, if maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
We're going to try and focus, just to keep this a little bit shorter.
Yep.
Trying to focus on things that are new announcements, or things that maybe we've seen before, but here's something new to it. So to kick the show off, actually, like in a really cool way, I thought was they did give just a release date, a new trailer for the game The Outer Worlds, which is of course the upcoming not Fallout game from Obsidian.
Yep.
The other really cool announcement of this game, Colin, and we can move on, is that it's coming to Game Pass day one.
Yeah, and that's because it's technically not a Microsoft Studios, or Xbox Studios thing, but that's definitely, maybe going forward that franchise will be Microsoft owned. I don't know. Possibly.
Like, I'm not sure what the deal would be, but so like we know that Microsoft bought Obsidian last year, and The Outer Worlds is one of those games that's in that, similar to We Happy Few from Compulsion, where that was another studio Microsoft bought, but We Happy Few had been in development prior to that acquisition, and so it had a different publisher, and so it came out on everything. So The Outer Worlds is also coming out on everything, but I guess Microsoft was like, hey, let's do it, let's put it out on Game Pass. Which is super cool.
It's weird that it started the show. I thought that was a very weird game to start the press conference with, but
I think it makes sense, just because of the acquisition of Obsidian. But it's cool. I think it's after that, I'm like, all right, let's go. Like, I'm into this. And that followed up immediately again with another studio recently acquired from Microsoft. It was Ninja Theory. Now this is a game I think this game is still multi-platform. if I remember correctly. But it's
Oh, I didn't think it was. I
Oh,
think
maybe
it's
it's
only. I
maybe
was
it's
thinking
not.
it's exclusive, actually.
Maybe it's not. I'm not sure. I'd have to double check on that. So this is called Bleeding Edge. This game did leak a few days prior. It is a competitive multiplayer 4v4 game. I think it's melee focused.
A lot of people were comparing it to Overwatch, and this gets an honorable mention for I don't know what this is. And the only reason I feel like I know that much about this game was the little like parts in the trailer where they showed text that say like competitive 4v4. I'm like, oh,
Sure.
I didn't know that. Thank you.
You got a lot of like very stylized characters, some crazy weapons.
Yeah.
There's an alpha on June 27th, which has passed.
Yep.
So
I guess
that's going on. That's going
true.
on now.
Yep.
I did watch a few minutes of some gameplay. I think they had it out on the show floor for people to play.
Oh, okay. I didn't even see that.
I watched like 4 or 5 minutes of it. It did not really pull me in, to be honest. It looked kind of rough.
Yeah.
Then again, I don't know how early this is, to be fair. One thing that was interesting that they noted is that they said something to the effect of, this is a game that we were working on before we were acquired.
Right.
And I think there was like maybe some fear that like, oh man, like Microsoft picks them up and suddenly they're making multiplayer games.
Right. Yeah.
And so maybe that was to alleviate some of that. But I've seen recently that this is like a pretty small team working on this.
Yeah.
And like similar in size to Hellblade, and that there's significant number or more people at Ninja Theory compared to that team size. So there was, people speculating there's probably other projects that they're working on. We just don't know about them yet.
Yeah, and I mean, if it being focused on melee combat, like that's a studio that does melee combat really well. Heavenly Sword, DMC, stuff like that, and even little bits of Hellblade. It is kind of disappointing though that like, yeah, man, new Ninja Theory game, like what could it be? And then like this is the first one that's shown.
For sure.
And I can appreciate them wanting to branch out, do other things. This is a studio that's never made a multiplayer game before, so I'm sure that comes with its own challenges. But you're kind of probably looking for the follow up being single player, narrative driven kind of game, like Hellblade. And a little disappointed, but interested to see how it turns out, I guess.
Cool. And so we can move on. Next few things run down really quick. So got a new trailer for Ori and the Will of the Wisp. This game is coming out February 11th of next year. A lot later than I was expecting, I guess.
Same, yeah.
That was kind of a surprising. I honestly thought like, oh, this could totally be a shadow drop, or this could totally be, sooner than we think. And it's still got some time.
I think it's like three E3s, I want to say now at this point it had been at.
I don't know. Three seems like maybe 2. I don't.
That's what I was wondering, but yeah, you might be right.
So from there, we got a trailer for Minecraft Dungeons. It's coming out next spring, 4-player co-op. It's basically Minecraft Diablo.
Yeah, basically.
I'm kind of into it. It's its own thing. It's separate from like Minecraft. It's its own game. It doesn't seem to be any kind of building elements to it, which I think is perhaps a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily be looking for anything like too in depth, but I think it's something that could have separated itself from other dungeon crawlers.
Yeah.
Either way, I'm into it. I'm down to check it out.
And that game also coming to PlayStation 4 and Switch, I believe, as well, and maybe Steam. I don't know.
Yep. So then we got I think this was like an extended trailer for Jedi Fallen Order.
Yeah, so basically what this trailer seemed to end up showing was just kind of highlights of the behind closed doors demo, because like they show the AT-AT like in the water and stuff. It just seems like it was just rough cut shots of that demo.
Yeah. So next up, Colin, this is like I think one of the first of this year's E3, like the first of a handful at least, really surprising and interesting announcements. Coming out of nowhere. So we get this trailer for what is clearly a horror game. There's clearly some weirdness going on. At one point, I think I joked to my brother, like, oh, it's Resident Evil 8.
I saw the video camera, and I was thinking, like, oh, is this Outlast 3? Like, that was kind of some of the stuff I was thinking about.
It was definitely interesting to kind of, like, run through the handful of recent successful horror games, right? Because I definitely thought about Outlast. I thought about Resident Evil. and I don't remember specifically when it was in the trailer, but it was definitely before we saw the stick figure human.
It was
part.
the right when it was the person standing in the corner, and I go, "Is this a
See,
Blair Witch game?"
It was actually before that.
Okay.
There was a part in the trailer, and it wasn't anything specific, but it was definitely at least a good bit of time before it started showing like very specific things, like standing in the corner, like the little stick figure things hanging from the trees. But there was definitely a point where I thought to myself, like, is this Blair Witch?
Yeah.
And it was.
Huh.
It is a Blair Witch game.
Yep.
That's not the only surprising thing about this, though.
Yep.
It's coming out very soon. It's coming out August 30th. And it is being developed by Bloober Team, which literally a month ago put out Layers of Fear 2.
Yeah, and even kind of weirdly, side note, like, I guess that game didn't get received all that well. Like, Layers of Fear 2, I guess, didn't do as hot as Layers of Fear 1.
Yeah, I haven't really looked. I haven't looked at it as much. I still want to check it out. I adored the first Layers of Fear, and like it had some technical issues for sure, being on Unity.
Yeah.
But I really, really like that game, and I've at least like the trailer I've seen of Layers of Fear 2, I thought looked good. I haven't played the game at all, but I want to. So like, but this though, it's different, right? You know, Layers of Fear is something where it's very much like walking through, like, environment gets really crazy. There's just a lot of just exploration kind of stuff. Blair Witch, it seems like there's some more like video game things happening. You've got your dog, you've got a camera. There's definitely some like Outlast vibes, right, with like a camera and the battery and things like that. But there's like the dog component, and the trailer, I guess you could probably pick it apart and like kind of get a good idea of how that dog will come into play. But it's kind of unclear. But yeah, I don't know. I definitely in the moment I got very excited. I think this is also coming to Game Pass.
Yep.
Which is great. That means like I'm there no matter what. I'm gonna play it. But the more I think about it, the more I'm like, I don't know what to expect from this. I don't know if this is something that's gonna be very short. Is this something where like how big is Bloober Team that they were able to just be working on this?
Right.
Especially having it come out so soon after Layers of Fear 2. That was one of the things that was really surprising to me. Because maybe Bloober Team actually is pretty big. Like maybe, or like how big is this team that's working on Blair Witch, or how big were they working on Layers of Fear 2? So yeah, I'm very excited to talk about that game on this podcast when it comes out.
Yeah, so. and we got so many more games to go, but I would say that's probably up there in top 3 for like the most like pleasant surprises of the entire show. Was that?
I won't say top 3 because there was some pretty good stuff, but I definitely want to. If I had to just put a list together of like these were the things that I was pleasantly surprised or pretty excited about. Definitely one of the first things that makes the cut.
Yeah, for sure.
So next up, we'll probably run through a few of these things. So they showed a trailer for a game called Spiritfarer. It's really I would have a very difficult time describing it. It's seemed like a pretty relaxed, almost Stardew Valley, Animal Crossing, that kind of vibe. But you're playing a character that is I think ushering your villagers into the next life, or something in regards to that. I don't know if you have anything to add to it. I would recommend people watch the trailer for this game.
So, per I believe it was the Jeff Keighley E3, not the Coliseum, but the YouTube gaming thing he did, it is technically Spiritfarer.
Oh, okay.
It's not Spiritfarer.
Okay.
How I was, because I thought the exact same thing. Like, oh, obviously it's Spiritfarer. But yeah, I didn't really care too much about that. There were several other games that kind of ran together after a while.
Yeah.
Like this. But yeah, I wasn't too big on Spiritfarer.
Well, next up we had the reveal trailer with gameplay for Battletoads.
Yep.
And Colin, I mean, it's
about what I expected.
Like it's Battletoads.
Yeah. I don't think there was any release date or anything like that.
No.
You forgot Mr. Breathtaking. If you want to touch on him.
How did I skip that? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we do have to talk about this. So it's Cyberpunk 2077.
Yep.
Got like a CG trailer, a gameplay-ish trailer, coming out April 16th next year.
Yeah, that's about what I expected, about early 2020. That's kind of what people thought.
Yeah, they have like a collector's edition out there. One, again, really surprising that they just did not show gameplay.
Yeah, that's kind of same.
I was like, okay, all right.
They did have a behind closed doors demo that I guess is going to be revealed at PAX.
Sure, they did, and again, like I was saying even before E3, I'm like, hey, like I am confident this is going to be one of the best games of 2020. I have no reason to doubt that, considering who it is like working on this. At the same time, I didn't really feel like all that blown away by last year's footage they put out. Like,
yeah, wasn't necessarily
I was
blown
ready.
away.
I was ready for them to come out swinging and like have some really cool stuff to show, and they didn't. Yeah. However, they did have Keanu Reeves on stage, so
yeah,
I guess it kind of evens itself out. That moment was ridiculous in the best way.
Cyberpunk. It is just like so. When I was first hearing him on stage, I thought he might have been a little drunk. I feel like looking back at it now, that's just him being him.
I think that's just him. I think he was just eating it up. I think he just like really was reveling in a moment that he was blindsided by.
I gotta talk to you guys about something. Like, oh, what is it? I wonder what it is.
Like, it's one of those things where, you know, we've had our celebrity guests on stage, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. I think more often they probably don't for people. But this was a feel-good moment, I think. It was, for sure. Like, you could tell that he was just into it. Like, he probably is loving it.
I really like the meme that's not the, you know, the you're breathtaking thing. It's the part where he goes, check this out. And he like points up to the screen and like people just like Photoshop like things into the screen. It's really funny.
That's good.
So even with him being in it, of course, everybody was thinking like, oh, how much is he going to be in? But apparently he's the second most voiced character or something like that in the game. So that's really cool.
And I was watching, God, I don't remember what channel it was or something it was, but I was watching a video where someone was talking about Cyberpunk, and apparently like the character he plays is like pretty well known in like Cyberpunk lore or whatever. Okay. I don't know, I'm blanking on it. It was like a week and a half ago, but anyways, he does seem to be a pretty prominent figure in the game.
Okay,
which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So Battletoads looked at, it's a brawler. It's Battletoads. I actually thought, like, I'll probably check it out. I don't know, like, how long I'll play it, but
the beauty of Game Pass.
Yeah, it's like the beauty of Game Pass is that, hey, I can try it for an hour and be good. Some other stuff, there was RPG they showed called The Legend of Wright. Is this the one that was,
The hand-drawn.
Like, the hand-drawn, like, in a notebook.
Yeah, I love the look of it, but I don't know what it is. So that's kind of one of the first ones of, like, I don't know what this is. It looked great, but I don't know who you're playing as.
I don't know if it's necessarily... I don't think that game is necessarily as egregious on the what is this front.
I agree with that.
It does have a very cool art style that definitely is, like, very eye-catching. Yeah. However, the more I watched it, the more I felt like it was very busy.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I think that could be to its detriment.
Yeah.
That like it almost felt like it was just too much.
I couldn't even tell what were you doing? Who were you playing as? What were you controlling? I had no idea.
So I definitely think that's more my issue with it. Like, I really like the way it looks.
Yeah.
But I feel like it maybe toned down just how much is happening at any given time.
Yeah, for sure.
But Legend of Wright, spelled like Phoenix Wright, I guess.
I guess so. Yeah.
Look it up. Definitely worth watching.
Wright brothers.
Yeah. Yeah. God. So, anyways, there was a lot of Game Pass stuff going on. There was a big montage of a bunch of indie games, like all of which that are coming to Game Pass. A lot of really cool looking indie games. I think I might be. I believe the game is called Creature in the Well.
Yep.
It's a like a pinball action hack and slash kind of thing.
Yep.
That's coming to Game Pass. They were also announcing like Game Pass, like Metro Exodus, Hollow Knight, so a bunch of other games that have already been out that came, I think, that same day. They talked about Game Pass on PC, so that launched day and date with the press conference, like going into open beta. Master Chief Collection will be on it. It's $10 a month. You can then get Game Pass Ultimate, which basically is it's Xbox Game Pass, PC Game Pass, and then Games with Gold.
Yep.
So all that bundled together for $15 a month. It's a ridiculous deal.
Yeah,
like,
that's
unbelievable
crazy.
How good of a deal it is at the moment.
Yep.
Cool. Next up, one of the it's something that I probably won't. Maybe I'll check it out. Maybe I will. I guess it'll be on Game Pass, but so I'll probably check it out for a little bit. Not something I'll really play a lot of, but I do think one of the cooler announcements is Microsoft Flight Simulator.
So yeah, I have a friend who I was actually watching the press conference with, who is the certified flight instructor
Cool.
university here in town. And yeah, he was super excited. And of course, like, his entire thought was like, is this only PC? Is it also Xbox One? But then of course, then like at the very end, it showed like Xbox One as well. So yeah, he was pretty
awesome.
excited about that. Yeah.
And so like the trailer started, I think, with like a line that was like, "Oh, all real time using Google Maps data" or something like that. And yeah, it looks really good. This is totally one of those things. Again, like, I don't know how much time I'll spend with it, but like, if you just think about having this in 4K, like just flying around cities or flying over the Grand Canyon or wherever you want to go.
Yep.
I'm curious to know, like, one of the things I thought about was like, how big are these areas you can fly in? I've never played any of the Microsoft Flight Simulator games before this.
Yeah.
But like, it would be cool if they were just huge, like just massive areas.
Yeah, they've got a lot of pretty much, I almost want to say, like, a lot of the airports that you'd normally go to with their runways and all that kind of stuff, like landing, VOR, ILS, aviation speak stuff. But yeah, like, it's got all that stuff in there, so I assume this one will be too. So
cool. They got a trailer. I don't even remember if this is a new announcement at this point for Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition on PC. So that's cool. Like, that's a cool thing. I played that a lot when I was a kid. That's exciting. Got a trailer for Wasteland 3. This is from In Exile, which is another studio that Microsoft acquired in the last year. And then, speaking of acquisitions,
yeah, man, woof.
So this was pretty surprising. They brought Tim Schafer out on stage. To announce that they are acquiring Double Fine.
Yeah. I should have known, because I want to say when Phil Spencer first took the stage before Jedi Fallen Order's trailer, he was wearing a Psychonauts shirt. So,
oh really?
Because it had that brain logo. I'm like, I'd seen that logo before. So yeah, that ended up being that Psychonauts logo, and that should have probably been a giveaway at the time. But yeah, did you see the video that Tim Schafer did put out on Twitter or YouTube about them getting acquired?
I did not.
It was basically to the sense of we're just deciding what to do, and Microsoft came and offered us a bunch of money, and I said, yeah. It was something like that, and that was it. That was how the deal happened. Very self-aware, kind of stuff like that. Happy for them and stuff like that.
It's I mean, for sure. I definitely saw a couple people ugh. But at the same time, Double Fine, hey, it costs money to run game studios, and I'm sure that they are probably feeling pretty comfortable now.
Yeah, there was talk about the Psychonauts 2 publisher, maybe Starbreeze or something like that, not doing too hot. And this is probably one of the only ways for that studio to survive. Yeah, was for this to happen.
Yeah, for sure. I feel pretty good about it. I think Tim Schafer seems like a good dude.
Yeah.
He seems pretty excited about it and like okay with it. I don't really have any concern, at least, about like I think this is probably a good move. And again, it's one of those things we talked about before, how Microsoft is just building a roster right now.
Yep, for sure.
You know, they're out there acquiring studios. They're like a very like specific studios too.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's exciting. It's exciting to see that they do care about, even if it's not necessarily something that's going to change in the immediate future, they do seem to care about their first party lineup.
Yeah.
And they do seem to care about acquiring studios that will give them a pretty diverse lineup.
Yeah. Also important to know that Rad and both Psychonauts 2 will be coming to other platforms as well.
Yep.
So those games are, just like the other ones, still going to come to PS4. The biggest thing I like about this is Double Fine does some weird stuff sometimes. Like the first one I even think about was like stacking or something like that.
Yeah.
And maybe in this kind of uncertainty, they weren't able to do kind of some of the even crazier stuff. But
Sure.
I love the fact that like, hey, you know what, Double Fine, just go nuts, go do something crazy, weird.
They definitely, I think best case scenario is like they're given a bit more free will to just like, hey, we wanted to make a stacking too, or like I don't know,
Yeah, exactly.
Now we can do that. Or there was this other thing we wanted to do, but it's pretty niche, and like, hey, now we can do that.
Yep, for sure.
So following that, we also got a new trailer for Psychonauts 2. I feel pretty safe saying that game is looking pretty good.
Yeah, I never played
still
the
ways
original.
out.
I know it's got its following, but I mean I love platformers and stuff, so it's probably a game that I'd never get to. But
so yeah, I
happy
played
for
it for
those
the
people.
first time like a year or two ago, I think. It's good. I was a fan. Yeah.
Good.
So moving on. So here's a game that Colin. So we get new trailer rolls, and it starts out with the like in a galaxy far, far away. And for a good 2 seconds, I'm sitting here like, oh wow,
Same.
like they're about to just drop a new Star Wars game on us.
Yeah.
Like, which I mean they did.
They did,
technically.
yeah.
So Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga. This is coming out next year. It is encompassing all 9 movies. So one of the weird things is Star Wars: The Last Jedi. They did not make a Lego game for that.
Right.
So it was weird. So they skipped it because hey, they're working on this thing. Which in the press conference, very little, like almost no information other than those 2 things. It's coming out next year. All 9 movies.
Yep.
Colin, have you read up about this game?
Apparently is this supposed to be like a over the shoulder or something? Like it's supposed to be a big change for the Lego formula.
Yeah, so there's been some articles of people, behind closed doors, some hands-on previews of this coming out after E3 that are describing it as a pretty big departure from Lego games of the past, over-the-shoulder camera views, like more complex combat systems.
It's a cover system, I think, as well.
Yeah, like
maybe.
they're saying a lot of things that are getting me very excited about this game. They were talking about, I guess they showed some stuff from, I think, the original trilogy. They like the 9th movie is like an option or something, like in the menu, but they were saying they haven't even been told anything about the movie.
Oh jeez.
Or something like that, which like but at least the concrete information, the stuff about changes to the combat, changes to even the camera and how the game even looks, like that all that stuff is really exciting. It's definitely beyond time for Lego games to change it up, and that's cool. Like I've always liked Lego games anyways. I think it's exciting to potentially see like something new, and hopefully we'll be able to see actual gameplay footage from it sooner rather than later. But at least what I was reading up on it from some of the previews, like definitely something that I am pretty excited about, or at least excited to see for myself.
Yep.
So moving on, we got a new trailer for what is now being called Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. This was Project Z, so it's the Dragon Ball Z I guess, open world RPG. I don't really know what to classify it as.
Yeah,
it is coming out next year.
I don't know, man.
From my understanding, this is retelling at least up to the Frieza saga. I don't know if the story is going past that. I certainly hope it does, because that trailer showed like the culminating fight.
Yeah.
in that storyline. So I'm hoping it goes further than that. But yeah, I mean, it looks like a Dragon Ball Z game for sure.
Yeah, I got nothing.
Yeah,
really.
Sure. So moving on to, actually, I think one of the potentially more exciting announcements from the Microsoft press conference is a game called 12 Minutes. This is being published by Annapurna. They are, of course, the movie and game publisher that can basically do no wrong.
Yeah.
So, halfway kidding about that. So 12 Minutes is a Groundhog Day style, I guess, thriller, perhaps.
Thriller's probably a good word, yeah.
The trailer we saw of it, there was a sequence where it's, I don't know if it's husband and wife or like, you know, a couple, they're sitting at a table, the girl is talking about something and the guy interrupts her and is like, hey, you're about to say this is about to happen. And she's like, well, what are you talking about? He's like, listen, I've lived this day over and over again. Cops are about to show up at the door. Do not answer the door. They're here to kill you. Like, so it's that kind of thing. And basically the trailer shows like a series of possible scenarios. And yeah, like that's really all we've seen of it.
Mm-hmm.
But Colin, that trailer did its job.
Yeah, I agree. I was pretty excited about it for sure.
Yeah, I think it ticks the boxes, and also it's, as trailers go, I think probably one of my favorites from E3 is it really tells a story, and it doesn't really need to show you too much gameplay, because it basically it just tells you what this game is, and you can kind of infer just what you're going to be doing. You don't really need to be seeing it. You just know, you're like, okay, I got it. Like, I know what this game is. I know what it's about.
Yeah.
Like, I'm in.
Yep.
So that's cool. I saw another game called Way of the Woods. It's out in 2020. And perhaps
play the deer, I believe.
Yeah, so it's like
you're like running into things with your horns, and
yeah, I've seen. I know I've seen some footage of it before. I halfway joked like Tokyo Jungle 2.
Yeah.
So moving on, one of the other surprises from the Microsoft press conference, and I wouldn't necessarily say a good surprise in this case, was the way they handled the Gears 5 section of their press conference. This game is coming out September 10th.
Soon.
And they showed no gameplay whatsoever.
Yeah, man. The only gameplay we got was the off-screen footage when they went inside the stage and showed the wrestlers guys going to be playing.
So they showed a CG trailer for the new
protagonist, I guess.
Or I was thinking that one. That was a weird thing with the faces, yeah. But then they did show another CG trailer for the new, one of the new multiplayer modes. Mm-hmm. I think it's Escape.
Escape, I believe, and it's 3-person.
So we saw off-screen footage of that, but there was basically nothing shown.
Yeah.
For a game that is out in through 2.5 months.
Yeah, so there's that tech test, and then there's, I think, an Escape or Horde mode beta or alpha at some other point near Gamescom. They showed the Terminator at the very end, which kind of ends up being a gag. Kind of ends up being a joke kind of when we get there. But yeah, I guess, did they technically, I guess, show more last year than this year?
I don't know. It's really bizarre. This is one of those games, I even told you, surprisingly, it's probably was one of my my highly anticipated E3 games. This is something I was very excited to see more of. Mm-hmm. And now I'm just all right, well, I'm still excited for this game, but
a lot of people laugh at the part where Rod Ferguson said, well, with Gears 4, you trust it, we proved to you that we can make a Gears game, and then a lot of people are like, no, you didn't prove you could make a Gears game. But yeah, I hadn't played Gears 4. I'm currently playing through Gears of War 3 right now. Very good, but just Gears 5, it was, looking back at the whole list, that's probably like the second most important thing from this entire conference, and it was like
arguably, yeah.
Yeah, like the most like what? Like don't Yeah, they
And
made it so uninteresting.
and you know, we'll get there, but the other important thing was like, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyways, following that, the new Elite wireless controller pre-order.
Now.
Dying Light 2 is coming out spring 2020. Got a new trailer for that. Not really too much more information.
Yeah.
That's cool. Forza Horizon 4 got a new expansion, came out that same week, called Lego Speed Champions.
Yeah.
One of my favorite trailers out of the C3.
This is technically one of my problems with this conference is that, like, okay, they brought the Lego car on stage, and like that's always kind of like a running gag, like, oh, he's got a car. Did they really need to bring somebody out on stage to talk about this? Like, that was some of the stuff, and we'll get to the next one as well, that, like, you've got some other stuff like Bleeding Edge that was shown on the show floor, or, you know, actually showing some Gears 5 footage, but no, you decide to shift some of that time and talk about Forza Horizon 4 Lego, that could have just been a trailer, and then the next game being Gears Pop. So people made a joke about this, that I guess this is technically the only game at the show that we actually got gameplay of, or something like that.
No. I will
Gears
at least
Pop.
accept the Gears Pop. God, yeah. And that, anyways, going back to Lego Speed Champions, I'll accept the car because they totally got us.
I agree. Yeah.
The fake out worked perfectly. The trailer, the reveal in the trailer, like when the car speeds by and you see the little Lego character looking over and smiling, like, could not have been more perfect.
Sure.
I still want to play. I haven't played it yet. I think the expansion's $20. So at some point I'll pick it up, I'm sure. I'm very because like I think it looks great. I'm down. So we did see gameplay of Gears Pop. Interestingly, no mention of Gears Tactics whatsoever.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
It's also kind of surprising. Gears Pop, it's a mobile game. It you know.
I really was surprised they gave it time.
It looks better than Commander Keen.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, what is with mobile games this year too? It seemed to be a thing.
I don't know.
But yeah, I'm really surprised they showed this again. Like, I know there was gameplay to show, but I thought this could have been something people talk about after the show, that they devoted time to it.
Sure. So up after that was State of Decay 2. Got a new DLC called Heartland, which was out the same day. This is like basically like perspectives from two different characters. It seemed like they were going to the same location, or like working towards the same location for different reasons. So that was kind of cool, I guess. Next up after that was probably one of the biggest announcements of the show.
I think so too. Yeah.
Not just their press conference, but just period.
Yeah.
Phil Spencer is standing in the crowd talking about like, oh, you know, this next thing, very excited to bring it back to Xbox. Trailer rolls, Sega logo. It's Phantasy Star Online 2.
Yeah, I figured that
spring
out.
Of next year.
It only took me about 30 seconds or so, and I'm like, is this Phantasy Star Online 2?
I don't even think we saw footage. It was like Sega logo, something about bringing the like long-awaited thing coming back. Mentioned like multiplayer online, and I was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
You madmen.
Yeah, so that's yeah, for sure. And like even the friend I was with, it was just like, what is this game? And I'm like, no, this is a big deal.
It's insane.
Yeah.
So what was actually really cool is I watched the interview that Giant Bomb had with Phil Spencer.
Great interview. Love those every year.
Great. Yeah, fantastic. Watch it if you haven't. I think they specifically segmented the video out into their YouTube channel, so it's like 40 minutes long or something. And they talk about this announcement and a couple interesting things that he noted. One, you know, Phil Spencer, like, if he's excited for something, you can tell. If he's like, you always know when he's genuinely a fan of something, and this is definitely a game that he seems to be genuinely a fan of.
Yeah, I agree.
And he was talking about how, like, one of the things that's really exciting for him is how Phantasy Star really, like, inspired a lot of things that we see in games these days. He was talking about even Destiny. Like, there's a lot of stuff in Destiny that came from Phantasy Star.
Yep.
And another thing that he mentioned is that this is a game that will come to other consoles.
Yeah, that was. I thought they might have fully locked it down as an exclusive.
It definitely seemed. I'd have to go back, but it felt like the implication was that it was an exclusive. Maybe it could maybe timed.
It might be. Yeah.
But if I had not watched that interview, I would not think for any reason that it would be on anything other than Xbox and PC. So that was an interesting detail.
Yeah.
They also made they really hyped up another announcement. First console coming 2020 for a game called Crossfire, or I think this version's Crossfire X. This was definitely something that went over my head.
I was on the verge of League of Legends or World of Warcraft, talking this massive 300 million players, and it's what is getting? And then they're like, this is Crossfire X, and I'm like, what?
Yeah,
what
definitely
am I watching.
I'm sure there's probably I don't know, I don't know where it's big at or whatever, but clearly there were people out there probably very excited about this. But definitely, I think probably for more I hate to say mainstream audience, because we're definitely not mainstream, but there was definitely I think people that myself included, and also people I follow on Twitter, definitely a lot of I don't know what this is.
Yeah, cool. I was gonna give it that, but I was gonna give it the I don't know what this is, but it can probably be given to that. I think there are other games that I was thinking of specifically, but I assume free to play. My assumption, but
so
2020.
Before we hit the end of the press conference, we had a string of some other games. This was a particularly exciting block for me. So first we have, or we don't have it on the list, but they, I don't even know if they showed it during their press conference, but there's a Ni no Kuni remaster coming out for the first game for Xbox and PS4, and then it's also coming to Switch. I say it now because it was part of 3 things that leaked the night before. I don't remember if it was actually in the press conference or not.
It was in the Nintendo Direct, I know.
Yeah. So what was from Bandai Namco in the press conference was 2 things. First was a trailer, a new announcement of a game called Tales of Arise. It's coming out in 2020, as is 99% of everything else at E3.
Yeah, I know, right? Look at all the 2020s on the page, what we're looking at.
So it's a new Tales of game. This one in particular, I thought looked really good, just visually. It looks I'm excited for it. It looks good, gameplay wise, but on the graphics side, I actually thought this looked significantly better than other Tales games have looked in the past, even the most recent one. So that stood out to me. And then we have them in differing orders, but I'm just gonna go ahead and talk about the elephant in the room.
Yep.
So hey Colin, you remember those rumors about From Software and George R.R. Martin working together?
I don't think I do. Did we talk about these on a podcast at some point?
Yeah, we talked about them a few times. Turns out they're true.
Yeah.
So Elden Ring is the name of the game. George R.R. Martin consulting on story and lore, the world building, basically. Miyazaki is directing and working on the story. And it's a From Software game.
What is this game, Curtis?
So yeah.
What is this?
Here's the thing, and it's something I was definitely thinking about in relation to all the other CG trailers that came out. Because From Software, if you look at their history, whether it's Dark Souls 3, Dark Souls 2, Bloodborne, Sekiro, to an extent, Sekiro was more of a teaser trailer, and then when it was actually revealed, we saw gameplay. They've all been CG trailers, and then it's 2 months later we see gameplay. I'm hoping that's similar in this case. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bummed out that we didn't see gameplay for it, just because I'm very interested. It's the thing, right? When you have Dark Souls 3 gets announced with a CG trailer, you're okay, I know what this is.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily need. I need to see it. I want to see it, but I don't need to see it, right? And Bloodborne, it was kind of lessened because gameplay footage had already leaked. We'd already seen it when it was announced with a CG trailer. So, you know, there in Dark Souls 3 was actually a similar case where like screenshots had come out before it was officially revealed with a CG trailer. So Elden Ring is a bit different. We have not seen what this game looks like. However, in the time since E3, there have been some interviews with Miyazaki that have come out where he's talked a little bit more in depth about what this game is. If Sekiro is a larger departure from Souls while still containing that kind of DNA, it definitely feels like Elden Ring is going to be something, at least from these interviews I've been reading, this definitely seems like a game that's going to be much closer to the Souls format. Okay. The open world probably, it seems like it might be a bigger departure than in the past. But he's not shying away from the fact that this is definitely, I think they're calling it like an evolution of the Souls formula. So yeah, and like, again, just the pairing of these two people in particular is super interesting. I actually thought the CG trailer was really interesting. I thought the voiceover, some of the like just visuals in that trailer were really like eye-catching. And there's I don't know, like From Software is one of those companies that their CG trailers like I actually really like a lot, and I think they always show. I think just historically, if you look at the things that they choose to show in those trailers, they're always like very important figures or like very like key individuals in the story. Yeah. So usually you can kind of piece together some lore bits, which maybe kind of lessens the blow from not being able to see gameplay.
Sure. Yeah.
So this is obviously probably one of the most exciting announcements for me personally. Unfortunately, just not a lot of information after the fact.
Yeah.
Also got a trailer for Borderlands 3, September 13th. That's when that game's coming out. Borderlands 2 has some DLC that kind of ties into that game.
Yep.
That's out now.
Yep.
So let's talk about the way they chose to wrap up this press conference. Talked a bit about xCloud, console streaming and stuff, and then they went into Project Scarlet, which holiday 2020. Yeah. There were some rumors prior to E3 that Microsoft was toying with the idea of having two different models, like a base model, then one that would be a bit more powerful. I think the code names were Anaconda and I'm blanking on the other one.
I remember something like that. Yeah.
Anaconda and something else. The rumors post E3 seem to be pointing that they've actually ditched that ideal, that they're just going with one specific model, which I think is probably for the best.
I think so too.
But they put out a video of just a bunch of developers and people talking about the new console. Talked about load times, talked about some of the specs. It sounds very similar, very, very similar to the PlayStation 5.
Yep.
Like very, very, like some of the words they were saying, I like cross-checking, like, is this just, are they just reading that article?
They in a way, it seemed like that. Kind of interesting when they were showing like different, that like white background and like corners and stuff ended up being like part of the T. I was like, oh, is this like, are they going to show the box or something? And no, I mean, it's very much like the Scorpio reveal, how they did that.
I was actually pretty surprised that they decided to go with the video of talking heads.
Yeah, they do that a lot, just about like, oh, how much this is going to be great for developers and how much, you know, they said the keywords, load times, ray tracing, and really to kind of, I guess, get into it, I think comparing the two, do we technically know more about the PS5 than we do know about the Scarlet? Because
we might.
I think, like, all in all, like, you know, with VR headsets and backwards compatibility, and I think, you know, obviously the new one's going to be backwards compatible, but spec-wise, I think we know more about the PS5.
I think the other interesting thing, and again, you know, we are a year and a half out from these consoles hitting, so any number of things could change. But like, I felt like prior to E3, the prevailing rumors and wisdom was that like the Scarlet would be more powerful.
Yeah. Post
E3, that's changed. Now it's people saying like, oh, I'm hearing the PS5 is more powerful.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see how those things change. from here on, I'm curious whether or not, like, for the remainder of 2019, what kind of stuff do we hear now? We've talked before about with Sony, it seemed like they were just ready to, like, let's talk about it. It's gonna leak anyways. Like, let's just go. And again, in that Phil Spencer interview with Giant Bomb, they even mentioned that. And I think even Phil Spencer was like, yeah, like, we were just like, let's do it. Like, let's just start talking about it now.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. So that's cool. They went from that, and I think we're maybe a little more, considering how they handled the Scarlet conversation, they were maybe a little bit more specific in regards to Halo Infinite's relationship with that console than I thought they would be. I think they were pretty blatant that, like, yeah, this is going to be on Scarlet, or that it'll be cross-gen or whatever. It's specifically that it would launch with Scarlet.
Yeah, this seems to be, like, I guess technically the first next-gen game announced is Halo Infinite.
Sure.
Something interesting that came out as well, that it will be on Xbox One as well. So, and then, like, I don't even really remember Phil Spencer's answer, but Jeff Gerstmann from Giant Bomb asked if there's going to be 2 SKUs. I don't think Phil Spencer necessarily knew yet.
I don't think he gave a specific answer, and actually, even what you just said about him not even knowing, I think that might even be fair.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, for sure.
He definitely talked around it, but I feel like I don't remember specifically what he said, but it felt like it was leaning towards, like, you buy it once.
Yeah, I think it'll be buy it once for sure.
Maybe we should be careful to put words in people's mouths, but it felt like that's what he was leaning towards, but again, it was very vague. And again, they also probably just don't know at this point.
I agree.
So we saw some in-engine, I guess, footage of Halo Infinite. There was no gameplay. There was no like combat itself. It was basically a cutscene. Again, you know, it's similar to the Gears thing. Like, Halo Infinite, I can at least cut you some slack. Like, hey, this is a year and a half out. You know, and also something that will be cross-gen. I'm sure it's in no state to show at the moment, and that's understandable. But it kind of felt like if the Microsoft press conference was starting to build this, like, sense of, oh, this E3 is going to be a lot of CG, a lot of, here's this new thing, not really going to show much about it, or talk much about it at all. It felt like the cherry on top, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where Gears 5's lack of gameplay was a bit more egregious, this one was like, all right. Like, okay.
I like what they showed. I like, it seemed like they're going back to the more classic Master Chief design, which I kind of like. A little bit more brighter colors, not as kind of much as drab. It seemed to be pretty narrative focused, and stuff, just through the performances, motion capture, all that kind of stuff. Kind of end up seeing this cutscene of this random guy kind of out in the middle of nowhere in space, seemed to be stranded, ends up finding Master Chief, and kind of leads up to the, like, no, like, we got to fight kind of thing. And I'm excited for it, for sure. I think what they showed is fine. It'll be interesting to see how much this leverage, and we talked about it, you know, a few weeks ago about it, that, you know, when you get these cross-gen games, you have to kind of show why you need to play it on Scarlet compared to Xbox One. And I don't know if this game was really fully built for Scarlet, or if this was an Xbox One game that they decide to move to Scarlet. I would actually maybe say the former. I would say they would probably start building this for Scarlet, and then also making kind of a slimmed down,
some concessions and stuff.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see next year.
Yeah.
So that was Microsoft. I think we'll wrap back around at the end of this to talk about, like, just general feelings on each press conference, how we think people did.
Yep.
Let's move on to Bethesda. So these next few are definitely going to be shorter.
We can run
these
through this.
Kind of third party, these publishers. There's definitely some key things to take away, but Bethesda itself, man, you know, like, again, you know, later on we'll talk about just in wrap up how we felt about each conference, but again, with Bethesda, I feel like that the first year they had a press conference, they nailed it.
Yeah.
Hit it out of the park, and ever since then, it's just felt like they haven't really, I don't know, it just feels like each year you hype yourself up thinking it's going to be good.
I I'm gonna be that guy in the corner, though. I'm not gonna say like it was
Okay.
a great conference, but even the past few years, I like the Bethesda conferences, and
Yeah,
just because I like their games, and I
mhm.
like, and I'm not talking about like Fallout and Elder Scrolls stuff. I mean like stuff with like the single player shooter kind of games. Like that's the stuff that I love, and so I
Sure.
always enjoy seeing what
The,
Bethesda has and
this and I
stuff.
do too. I think maybe this year might have just been a bit more egregious for a variety of reasons. Um,
They've had
so
worse ones.
I'm gonna run down the list. So we kick things off again. Elephant in the room. Fallout 76. They addressed it. They were like, hey, yeah, like it was messed up. We'll
Yeah, and
fix
they
it.
the biggest part, mostly likely with that, was the part where he goes like, "And for some reason, you guys are still here," or something like that.
Yeah, a lot of like
Some
self
joke.
awareness to it.
Yeah,
I feel like maybe it's not their fault, but I feel like the tone of the way they addressed it, the tone of the way they handled other games, um, I think was kind of destroyed by the audience. And again,
I would agree with that
that
too.
that
Yeah,
may have not been their fault. That could have just been like fans just being really obnoxious. But man, like when we were talking about like Elder Scrolls Online and even Fallout 76, they were talking about like the Wastelanders and the whole battle royale stuff, and these people couldn't say a sentence
yeah,
without people losing their minds. And I certainly hope, like, maybe that's the dev teams up at the front just screaming and shouting, but it didn't really.
yeah.
It felt like it was much more than that.
Agreed. People were like, "Oh, were they plants?" And I was starting to think like, "Oh, these were people that Bethesda can pay." Like, you feel like you hear that like at the Apple
Yeah,
conferences. You're like, "Okay, obviously these people are clapping for everything."
but
But
even
yeah,
like
this seemed to be too much. It
one of
seemed to
the
be really
loudest people,
egregious.
like someone interviewed him, and it was like, "I'm just a big fan." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah,
So this is gonna be. I'm gonna segue real quick. So the guy who ended up yelling the "You're breathtaking" thing
yeah."
at Keanu Reeves, I guess, is getting like a collector's edition
He did turn it
that
down.
game. Oh, he did. Okay.
Yeah, the follow up to that
So
is he turned it down and asked them to
okay.
donate it to something.
So I guess the other part is like, okay, now is this people thinking that they can just yell and maybe they'll get something? I don't know.
Who
That
knows?
was, yeah.
So yeah, that was like honestly, that's probably the. I don't think it helped their press conference, and again, it probably isn't really even that much their fault,
Yeah.
but it really like it made it pretty grating to watch,
Yeah.
which sucks.
Yeah.
That said, so Fallout 76, all right, there's some new stuff coming to it, cool. Elder Scrolls Blades is coming to Switch. There, new Dragon Quest
Yeah. There's new Dragon Quest line.
quest line. Um, so talking about Elder Scrolls Online, like cool. Bringing back Commander Keen as a free-to-play mobile game that looks god awful, great.
Yeah. Great. Yeah.
Talk about Elder Scrolls Legends. Showed some like updates for Rage 2, great. Showed some new trailers, some new stuff for Wolfenstein, Cyberpilot, and Youngblood. Cool, great.
Yeah.
Let's get into the key stuff here from Bethesda.
Yeah.
All right, so Ghostwire Tokyo.
What is this game, Curtis? It's next gen, obviously, but what is this game? I think
At least cross-gen for sure.
Yeah.
So this is
cross-gen,
from Tango Gameworks. I'm pretty pumped. Like I felt like the trailer at least like gave me enough. Like it's all CG,
Yeah.
but I felt like I had enough to be like, okay, tone, story, I know what's going on here. I would love to have seen some gameplay
Yeah.
for sure, but yeah, I'm
It left me with
down.
enough. It left me with enough questions to be interested, not more
Yeah.
like, what I mean. I have questions, but I'm more interested than some of the other things that we don't
There's
know what they are.
definitely a lot of times you get a CG trailer where you're like, all right, like can't wait to see gameplay. The things I will say about the CG, the two new games announced that were just CG, no gameplay at Bethesda, both of them, it helps that they're from developers that I really like, but also I think the trailer alone stands as a really good tease, something really good just that pulls you in and makes you want to know more and makes you interested in that world. So Ghostwire Tokyo, what do we know about it? Not a lot. We know it's a spooky game.
Yeah.
But it seems more actiony. It seems more of an action game than, let's say, Evil Within is more of a survival horror, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's some sequences of like people vanishing. Felt very Avengers, actually, in a weird way. Like it actually, like, have you seen Endgame, right?
Yeah. Marvel.
So
Avengers,
the stuff with I guess he goes as Ronin or Hawkeye
Oh,
in
yeah.
Endgame, where he's like off in Tokyo or whatever. It almost like it was giving me that kind of vibe in some respects. It sounds like there was more of a mystery going on, which I'm always down for.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, don't know too much about it. One thing that was really cool though is Mikami comes out on stage
Yeah.
and he's talking about it, and he introduces. I don't remember her name, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it kind of felt like a passing of the torch moment, actually.
It really kind of was, yeah.
And that's really cool. This is someone, she had kind of been working under him, and I believe with Evil Within 2 had like a much larger role.
Mm-hmm.
In that game, and it sounds like now Ghostwire Tokyo is hers in some respect.
And it seemed like they worked together at Platinum as well. The people had talked about.
So that's super cool. She became a bit of a everyone like is very excited meme. People were drawing fan art of her poses she was doing on stage. Like she seemed genuinely thrilled to be on stage talking about it. That's super cool. The other new IP that was announced from Arcane previously, Dishonored people. This game called Deathloop. So this
what is this game, Curtis?
Again, what is this game? Another CG trailer. This is focused on two characters, two assassins. Perhaps it looks like their contract is basically to kill each other.
Right. Yeah.
Some of the I don't know if previews are the right word. There were some people writing articles after they went and like did interviews with the developers, and the implication from this game is it might be a bit Hitman-esque.
Okay.
And how you approach levels and things like that. So that's pretty cool. Again, would love to see some gameplay from that.
Sorry. I was like, is this game multiplayer? Like,
no, it seems like it is single player.
That's the thing. Like, I didn't know if this
reading.
was some like asynchronous multiplayer thing or, stuff wasn't very clear to me. I guess.
I think both of those games, like, you can kind of connect the dots. That these are probably at the very least cross-gen.
Yeah.
Which, hey, cool. So they did talk a bit about Orion, which is their game streaming tool, I think. It's kind of unclear. I think people interpret it to be their own platform. The way I was interpreting what they were saying is it sounded more like their solution that other streaming platforms could use, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
They were addressing, they were talking about things that a lot of other companies that have streaming platforms don't talk about. Like, how is this going to work? Like here's the picture, but like, how is this actually going to come together? It's kind of they were like talking about how they were problem solving it. And so like, that was actually kind of cool. Like whether or not, whatever this actual thing even is, like, it was kind of nice to hear someone on stage talk about the realistic nature of streaming games and trying to think through the different issues that would arise for different people. Like, that was actually kind of nice to hear. I don't know. I appreciated it.
They brought somebody out playing Doom 2016 on a phone, but that didn't really do much. For me,
it does not show well.
It doesn't show
on
me
stage.
anything.
Yeah. But speaking of Doom, so they ended, of course, with Doom Eternal. We got a release date of November 22nd. That's a bit later than I was expecting, but that's fine. No better thing to be thankful for than more Doom.
Yep.
They showed show more at QuakeCon, but they did debut a new battle mode, or this might even just be the multiplayer now.
I think it is the multiplayer.
So it's a 3-player mode. One person is the Doomslayer, 2 people are demons. It felt fighting game-ish.
A little bit,
presentation. I don't know what to take of it. I'm curious to try it out myself. I actually think it could be kind of interesting. It's different, for sure. Like, I think it being so different and having its own unique take on Doom and what that could be like in multiplayer, like that, to me, is at least exciting and much more interesting than them just throwing deathmatch into the game. And I think also the other key thing to note is that multiplayer for Doom Eternal is going to be in-house for this game, whereas the previous Doom game was some other developer.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good way to describe what they're talking about with the battle mode, is like fighting game-esque, because they're really trying to take away that, you know, it's not a person whose Twitch skills are better, and because they compared the Doom 2016 multiplayer to being like, hey, you know, whoever just had better Twitch skills won. But here they do try to make it more methodical, I guess. And I suppose the Doomslayer, I guess, as well, like, has basically available every single upgrade and mod from the single player. So it's like, it's not like a watered down kind of Doomslayer.
Yeah, so like that's cool. I actually, again, you know, it could totally be a mode that no one plays at all.
Yeah,
I think there's a very real chance that that's the case. But
I agree.
I at least appreciate them trying to do something different.
Yeah,
just seeing if it works out or not.
There's still the like invasion kind of mode as well that they haven't really touched too much else on.
Yeah.
But
that was Bethesda. I think Doom Eternal continues to look fantastic.
Yep.
Probably one of my most most anticipated games for the remainder of 2019 by far.
Yep.
By far. So let's go to Ubisoft. So, Monday afternoon, Ubisoft takes the stage. Weird show for them, for sure.
Yeah.
But let's get into it. So they actually took a note out of Sony's playbook this year, and they started out with a live on-stage symphony.
Yep.
To announce an Assassin's Creed symphony going on tour. That's neat. That's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm super like that into Assassin's Creed music, but okay.
No, me neither.
And from there we kick things off with, I actually think, one of the better, you know, not very many of them this year, but definitely one of the better live E3 demos with a game called Watch Dogs Legion.
Yeah.
So this game is coming out March 6th, 2020. So we talked about Watch Dogs 3 or Watch Dogs Legion now. Previously we've talked about like what our expectations were for it and the fact that it takes place in London. By the time we got to Watch Dogs Legion, we had seen a lot of like, oh, it's no gameplay. Oh, we're just seeing CG. Oh, they're just not going to show it. And so when we got to Watch Dogs Legion, it definitely felt like the moment of like, this is what you do. This is how you show your game. Because it wasn't like completely uncut gameplay. Like they definitely they fast forwarded a few moments, which I thought worked.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was like, let's show you the key things. Because in Watch Dogs Legion, Colin, I'm interested to hear your take on this, especially as we differ on our Watch Dogs opinions so far.
My name's Aiden.
The catch to this game, the hook, is that you can just play as any NPC. There isn't any specific named character that is the star of Watch Dogs Legion. There's no Aiden. There's no, I think it's Marcus.
I think it was Marcus. Yeah.
It's just all these NPCs, right? So in the gameplay footage, we see like you take control of like a granny. You can recruit her to your side and you do like a stealth mission. A lot of it is building up a team, basically. And all the NPCs, they have their own different unique abilities. They have their own unique traits. One person might be better with stealth. One person might be better at, I don't know, like hacking things. So yeah, it's pretty ambitious. Colin, what do you think of this?
Yeah, so this is only like the third game in this franchise, but it feels like this franchise, and I think I'm gonna call it the it's not the Watch Dogs fatigue, it's just the Ubisoft fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm like, okay, another open world, another third person whatever kind of game with guns kind of thing.
Yeah.
I really didn't see myself. It's one of those games where I'm like, yeah, I'll play that, but I'm not really that excited for it. Like, I think I'll find enjoyment out of it, but I'm not really all that interested in it. I have weird questions about, like, so what if, so you can recruit any NPC, but what if you only have one NPC left and then that person dies? Like, who do you take over then as that?
Yeah, that's the other thing, is there is permadeath in this.
Yeah, for sure.
I have a lot of questions too. It's very, very, it's like a very ambitious concept. I wonder how it's going to shake out.
It demoed well.
Like, I thought it demoed super well. Like, one of my questions is, like, okay, so, like, every NPC that carries weight with it. So if you're going in a mission, right? Let's say you're infiltrating a base, there are going to be enemy characters that you have to avoid or take out. Are they recruitable as well, or like how does that work? Like, I guess my thought is, like, the recruiting shown in this gameplay demo, it seemed like they were specific missions even.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm very curious to know, like, how, like, just how it works. Like, what does the active recruiting even look like? Yeah, I've a ton of questions. But at least as far as how it demoed, I thought it demoed really well, and it, like, has me pretty excited. I hope they pull it off.
Yeah. But
man, it seems kind of crazy, and it's hard to wrap my head around. So, anyways, weird thing to follow it up with. But blanking on the guy's name, he's actor from Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
That's all I know. Yeah.
Comes out on stage, announces a new TV show which is like way too long. The name is it's called Mythic Quest Raven's Banquet. It's an Apple TV show. And basically, it seems to be kind of in the same vein of like The Office or something like that, where it's a comedy. It's about a game studio. It's working on a big MMO, like the biggest game. Basically, in their universe, it's like the biggest game in the world, and they're putting out their new expansion, Raven's Quest. And so it's just a TV show about that. Like, I'm curious, at least. Like,
I'm trying to remember, what does this have to do with Ubisoft again?
So so they're working with Ubisoft. I think, like, the writers are because they wanna.
Okay.
They want to make it authentic or something. I'm trying to remember how he phrased it. But it seemed, the implication, at least from what I took of it, seemed to be like, we want to make it more realistic to, like, what it's actually like. Which, okay. I'm like, I am morbidly curious enough to, like, seek this out at some point and just see it, because I want to know. Like, they showed a couple clips from the show, but it really wasn't, like, much to go off of.
Yeah.
It was weird. So past that, a lot of other, like, just very quick updates and things like that, or some of it they spent a lot of time on, where they showed it. Rainbow Six Siege just shows new content. Brawlhalla, the Adventure Time characters are coming into that game. Like, cool. Ghost Recon Breakpoint had, like, a strange section. So, like, that game was announced. It had a bunch of YouTubers and other people. So, like, a bunch of gameplay from that is already out. So they had John Bernthal, he's from The Walking Dead, right?
Yeah, Walking Dead. He was in Punisher. He was in The Pacific. Yeah, okay. Basically, I'm basically going to say, I feel like I like him. I think he's a good actor, but he's one of those, like, every role he has is the exact same role. Sure.
So he came out on stage with his dog, talked about Breakpoint. They didn't show anything of Breakpoint. He just talked about it for a very long time.
Yeah.
Tom Clancy's Elite Squad, which I completely had forgotten about. Apparently it's a mobile game. Yeah. Just Dance 2020. So they came out and did a dance number.
Multiple songs, I think. I don't know if they had one song.
Sure. Yeah, I think you're right. It was multiple songs. Yeah. So it's still coming to Wii.
Not
fantastic.
Wii U.
Fantastic.
Yeah, love it.
For Honor, there's a new trailer for what is it? Shadows of the Hitokri?
You got it.
Sure.
I don't know.
It's like a new character, I think, right?
Yeah. Something short.
Cool. So next up is, this is Rainbow Six Quarantine. Um, this is the game we were talking about. There was like the thing that was teased in Watch Dogs 2, the space game. It was something, then it was scrapped, and it's something totally different, and now it's Rainbow Six Quarantine.
Yeah.
Coming out early next year. We didn't see I don't think we saw gameplay, right? I think it was just a trailer.
It was a trailer, yeah. Somebody's getting infected and trying to cure the virus or something.
So it's 3-player co-op. The thing that's interesting to me, one, like the fact that it is co-op is like immediate, like, okay, cool, like I could be into this. There does seem to be some kind of infection, alien, some sort of like monster that you'll be fighting against. Like that kind of stuff has me interested. But again, like, saw next to nothing.
Yeah, I don't necessarily. It's not a what is this game, because I think we know enough, I guess. Basically, what they'd said on stage was that they wanted Rainbow Six Quarantine to be like the co-op, where Rainbow Six Siege is only competitive
PvP.
multiplayer. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
But early 2020, please be excited.
Please be excited
to the Tom Clancy cast.
So Division 2 just had some guy talk about some updates. They're making a Netflix movie.
Yeah.
Cool. So Uplay Plus, which is the Ubisoft subscription service on PC. It's out in September, $15 a month.
Yeah, I think you get every game on Uplay for $15 a month.
Cool.
Yeah.
Everyone's got their own streaming service now.
Yeah.
And then finally, the last two brand new games announced, new IPs. Roller Champions, which had leaked. So there, I didn't check it out. I don't know if you did.
I wanted to, but I did not. No.
I did as well, and then I just didn't. They put up a demo on Uplay for PC from the 10th to the 14th. You could download and play. So I saw a little gameplay from it. I think I'm good.
Yeah, it kind of. I think what we had talked about a little bit, it seemed to go for that kind of like Rocket League kind of
for sure.
Competitive vibe. Again, it obviously did a lot when we're like, yeah, we want to play it, and then we just never did.
Sure.
So,
but then the last thing they announced, so we'll talk about it as, so Gods and Monsters. This game is surprisingly coming out February 25th of next year. It is from the Assassin's Creed Odyssey team.
Yep.
Or not, wait.
Yep, Odyssey.
Odyssey was the most recent one, right?
Yep.
So it's that team. They started working on it late last year. It is apparent, like, from interviews I was reading from them, it seems to be like, it doesn't sound like it's like low in scale. Like, it seems to be in the same scope of Odyssey. It definitely sounds like it's taking some direction, some inspiration from like a Breath of the Wild. It is very what was interesting to me is they were talking about, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and they wanted to focus even more on the like mythology and mythical aspects of that world, which has me very excited, because that's one thing that I really wanted and I want more of, is like, games that focus on mythology. Like, I want to be able to fight minotaurs or like other mythological creatures. That kind of sounds like what Gods and Monsters is or will be. So like, that's really exciting. The thing that's just crazy to me is that it's coming out so soon.
Yeah. And
that we saw nothing from it. So that's great.
Yeah, I feel like I watched that trailer twice and I still didn't know what I just watched.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what this game is.
And again, it's I think to belabor the point, it's like, I'm not necessarily against CG trailers, but tell a story with your trailer. Like, show it. Like, at least key us in onto what this is. Don't rely on preview articles or like Kotaku pieces to tell your fan base what these games are, right? The only reason I even feel like I know what Gods and Monsters is going to be is because I read Kotaku.
Yeah, and I feel like I've never been really a person that like really didn't like CG trailers. I was usually fine. It just seemed like this E3, we got CG trailers that showed us nothing. Where I feel like other ones, usually at least had a sense of what this game is. But these that don't.
And context is also always important, right? So like if it's a brand new IP,
yeah, for sure.
I think it's important to like set at least. So again, you were talking about with like From Software, right? So with like Elden Ring, it's okay. You're setting a tone, right? You're at least like keying us into maybe the world or what the story is gonna be. I'm trying to think of other like brand like new IP CG trailers that like really hit hard.
Even what I'm thinking of right now is if Rainbow Six Quarantine was named like just Quarantine, I'd been like, what is this game? Like, okay, I guess it's co-op, but what's the point of it? But knowing that it's a Rainbow Six game and it's supposed to be part of like Siege a little bit, like I understand a little bit like what this game is a little bit more.
And then also like on the other end, like let's say it's a CG trailer for the next game in a series, right? It's like, oh, okay, like yes, I've played those games. This is going to be like that. Okay. And maybe in that case, you're more interested in what the story or what the new setting is going to be. So cool. Or in the other, like, more unique scenario, if you're going to announce a remake for Final Fantasy VII, you know, that CG, like, that CG trailer, like, at least in our reality of what 2015 CG trailer was for that announcement, like, that trailer itself was the announcement, right? Like, that was a whole other ball game. So context matters, and so for something like Gods and Monsters, like cool is the first like very quick glimpse into a world that we haven't seen before, and it'd be different if the date was February 25th 2021, right?
Sure.
But like we saw a pretty lengthy demonstration for Watch Dogs, a game that is out a month and a half after, or no, a game that is out like a couple weeks after Gods and Monsters. And we saw nothing from this. Yeah. So, kind of disappointing, honestly. Like, I was really hoping that we would at least see something from it. I almost wonder if that game's just going to get pushed back because it seems like a very short dev cycle for that game.
I agree. And Odyssey is huge. That was a huge game.
Yeah. So, anyways, Square Enix then happened just a couple hours after that, Monday night, 9 p.m. You know, I actually thought pretty solid all around. Maybe dipped a little bit in the middle, but the bookends were what counted for this one. So we kick things off with Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's important to note that the night before, they had a Final Fantasy VII themed concert happening in town. And that is where they officially announced the release date for the first part, March 3rd, 2020. But this on stage here, they broke down the combat. They showed a full-on boss fight. They came out and they gave us a lot of information. From gameplay to what this game would be. We found out that it is in fact Midgar.
Yeah.
This is... Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, it kind of reminded me a little bit of, like, the Fallout 4 reveal, where usually I feel like when people start talking during E3 press conferences, they're kind of just like, hurry up, or whatever. Yeah. But everything they said was, like, relevant information that I wanted to know.
Yeah, everything they said, like, mattered, was important.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of the... similar to Fallout 4, I think is a good example. This is a game that as soon as like that logo came up and as soon as they took the stage, it was like every single word you were about to say is going to matter. Everyone is listening right now. Like even people who probably don't care about this game, we're all sitting here like edge of our seat. Like what is about to happen? And so maybe almost surprisingly, Square Enix, you know, for me, I really, really like a lot of the games that they put out. I certainly love Final Fantasy 15 more than a lot of other people do. But they're not necessarily a publisher that like people just love. I think they're still pretty divisive. I think it's fair to say. Yeah. They've got some really good stuff. They got some stuff not as much. But this is, I think, surprisingly, and I'm very happy that it turned out this way. The reception of the Final Fantasy VII Remake stuff that we've seen over the past few weeks has been like unanimously good.
Yeah, I think so too.
Or even like I've unanimous praise, like people talking about like this is exactly what we wanted it to be. And it's nice to hear, and it's nice to like, especially for this game, like especially for Final Fantasy VII Remake, it's important that they get it right. And from everything we've seen so far, by all accounts, it certainly appears like they know that. I think Tifa looks great. Like, yep. Barrett looks great. Cloud, like, they all look great. There's a scene from the trailer where it's Cloud, Aerith, and Tifa, like, running into a battle together. And for whatever reason, like, that was the moment that it became real to me. It was like, oh my god, like, this is it. Yeah. It's happening.
Yeah.
I thought, again, we talked about, like, the Watch Dogs Legion demoing really well. I thought this was easily one of the best showing games of E3. And apparently a lot of other people thought so, as it did win like several awards.
I think it was probably best showing. I think, you know, as people who aren't there, who aren't seeing behind closed doors demos, I would say Final Fantasy VII Remake is the best game of the show for someone who was sitting on a couch.
Yeah, it's looking pretty good.
2 Blu-ray discs.
2. So that was like, there was definitely a lot of confusion, and I think maybe it was because, like, hey, we have a live translator, so it's hard to tell on stage.
No more out there with shorts on.
Because in the moment, it definitely sounded like, or my interpretation in the moment was, it's 2 parts.
I agree. That's what I thought. But
and then, like, the press release, and but it is definitely, like, part 1, Midgard, and that's 2 Blu-ray disc worth of data.
Yeah. We've never had a game like that. We've never had a game like that this gen.
Yeah. I'm excited.
Man.
I'm very curious. Like, and I think also that, like, day and then the following few days thinking about Final Fantasy VII and, you know, thinking about, like, it became this, like, existential thing for me of, like, all right, how long is this gonna take? Yeah, like, how many parts is this actually gonna be? Because they were asked that. People, like, several people were like, okay, like, 2 parts, 3 parts, what are we looking at? They didn't give a clear answer, and, like, honestly, some of their answers even sounded like they didn't know, which maybe is a little worrying, but I don't know. But I started thinking about, like, okay, best case scenario, 3 parts, 2 years each, right? Like 2022 and then 2024, and then I started thinking about, like, my age, like, and being like, oh, I'd be like mid-30s at best when the final part comes out. And so it became this, like, existential thing, and then I just made peace with it. And again, I thought back to that original CG trailer where the line is something like, you know, it's talking about the promise being made, and, like, whatever it brings, whether it's sorrow or like joy, like, just live it, just relish in it, that it's happening. Right. And so I've kind of, like, entered that mode where I'm like, I'm not that concerned about the other parts right now. Like, I'm just happy it's happening. I'm happy that it looks good, and I'm just like, I'll be there when it's there. And otherwise, I'm just gonna try not to, like, think about it too hard.
Yeah, I think pretty much what we can assume: Final Fantasy VII Part 1, PS4. Then the next are going to be PS5, but then I would assume obviously the Part 1 gets ported.
I would think so.
Yes, it's just backwards compatible, I guess.
That too, yeah.
Yeah, this is gonna take a while.
It's gonna take some time, and
yeah,
I made peace with it. Where I'm like, you know what, this looks really fantastic. They're clearly putting effort into it. I'm like, all right, I'm in for the ride.
Yeah. Get that motorcycle collector's edition.
Whew. So they actually had, like, Square Enix had a fair bit of announcements. Some new, some release dates. I'm just gonna run through the vast majority of these really quick.
You got it. Yeah.
So they had a trailer for Life is Strange 2. I tried my best to avoid that.
Same.
Like the plague. So I'm not spoiled on anything. Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles is coming out this winter. It's like a remaster. The Octopath Traveler out today, or like out that same night on Steam. So that's cool. Last Remnant also shadow dropped on the Switch. That's cool. Dragon Quest Builders 2, just, like, reiterating, hey, it's coming out July 12th. They actually just a few days ago put out a demo on the Switch and PS4. I've not tried it out just because it's so close. I'm just gonna wait. But I am ridiculously excited for that game. Dragon Quest XI: Echoes of an Elusive. Oh my god! Here, Colin, you take it away.
Excuse me. Dragon Quest XI: Echoes of an Elusive Age S Definitive Edition, launching this fall on Nintendo Switch.
So that's coming out late September on the Switch.
I think we ended up getting the release date on the Nintendo Direct the next day.
Yep. Awesome, great. Yeah. Circuit Superstars. It's like an indie game. It's part of the Square Enix. I'm blanking on the term.
Or collective
or something like that. Yeah. It's coming out next year. It's like a Micro Machines kind of racer. Yeah. So that looked cool. They actually, and then Battalion 1944. I don't remember anything about this.
It's just some new updates coming to this game. It was already out, but something new. Yeah.
So they showed a commercial kind of thing and it was teasing Square Enix music. And definitely it was a little eye rolly at first of oh, here's another music service app or something that's dedicated to Square Enix only. But they became self-aware and joked about it and just announced hey, Square Enix music is just on streaming services like Spotify, iTunes, which I thought was really cool actually.
A lot of production value for an ad.
Yeah, but at the same time, one of the more exciting announcements in a weird way.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
It's hard to find, so I use Spotify through my car to listen to music, whether it's on the way to work or wherever, and especially video game music is really hard to find, and there's not a lot of it. So Square Enix, who has a catalog of excellent music, that's actually really cool. So I was pretty excited about that. So we got a trailer for this a couple days before the press conference. I think it was during the Final Fantasy VII concert or whatever, or around that time. So the night before, we saw the same trailer again for Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind, which is the DLC that's coming out later this year for Kingdom Hearts 3. I'll just be blunt. I actually think this trailer was really poor at showing what this DLC actually is. And it did not really give me. It honestly didn't really get me excited at all about what it would be. A lot of the footage in that trailer just looked like, I swapped a character during these integral boss fights.
It looked like Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah. Sorry. There's basically they straight up show boss fights at the end of the game in that trailer, and the only difference is I'm playing as a different character. Now there's supposed to be new story stuff. I think they actually did show a cutscene that was not in the game previously from the Hercules world. It's that kind of stuff is cool. I will probably play it. I just wanted I feel that trailer could have been better at showing or demonstrating here is what is new, here is why you should be excited.
Right.
I don't think it did its job.
Yeah.
So I also got some stuff, new trailer for Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers, which is, I think the early access is out now, but it's officially out on July 2nd or something. Dying Light 2, again, just trailer. Romancing Saga, and then Saga Scarlet Grace Ambitions, it's coming to the West. A lot of these announcements for just a lot of very niche JRPGs. They announced a new Final Fantasy Brave Exvius mobile game called War of the Visions. Great. Oninaki got a release date, so this is a new game from Tokyo RPG Factory. I'm actually pretty excited about it. Their first two games have been turn-based, kind of Chrono Trigger style combat systems. This one is an action RPG.
Yep.
So it's pretty different. I think it looks really good. I know I skipped one of the things on the list, but I'm going to dial back to it in a second.
Yep.
Final Fantasy VIII, they are remastering. It's coming out sometime this year. Actually, I don't know if you saw, but in the past couple of days, there was some metadata on their website that was talking about it getting English and Japanese voiceover.
Oh, okay. I thought you were maybe going the other news story, I guess, with it. Have you heard about they hadn't they people are like, why are you neglecting Final Fantasy VIII? And I guess apparently they just didn't have the source code.
Right.
Like they just didn't. And again, like I probably agree. Back then it's like, oh, you just put the game out and you're done. Like that was kind of it. But
Well,
that's
something
the original source code for it.
I think that's something that we had known for a while.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure about that.
Or at least I remember hearing about it a while ago.
Okay.
But it's crazy. That is it's such a crazy story that, and again, not like you were saying, not really to blame them. It's just kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah.
So that's cool. I've only ever played the first like opening hours of Final Fantasy VIII. So, I don't know if you saw like some of the side by side like screenshots, but it's definitely it's a pretty substantial like cleanup of the visuals. So last two things. One, we get a brand new IP from People Can Fly. We know them from Bulletstorm.
Yep. Gears of War Judgment.
It's coming out summer 2020. It's a game called Outriders.
Say it with me. What is this game, Curtis?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
It's
watched
a
that
shooter.
trailer twice, and I don't know.
Looks like maybe on some kind of alien planet. Some monsters looked almost some like cosmic horror kind of monsters, maybe.
Yeah, you got it.
I was really hoping, so there was definitely some like developer diary stuff going on in that trailer. Yeah. Saw some like people, you could see like people's computer monitors with stuff open. And I was really hoping we'd see some gameplay like on the computer monitors, but nothing.
They even brought people out to talk about it. I don't remember a thing they said.
Yeah. So I again, something that like sounds cool. Yeah. But I guess we'll see it later.
Yeah.
And then, so they closed the show with Marvel's Avengers. The Crystal Dynamics and a bunch of other studios working on this. They had a number of people on stage, actually similar to Final Fantasy VII, just like rotating list of people taking the stage to talk about Avengers. So we got to look at the cast of Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk, Black Widow, etc., Thor. They emphasize like any future DLCs, expansions would be free. No loot boxes. It definitely sounds like PS4 is going to be the place to go for this game. Sounds like that is your marketing deal for that.
Yeah.
This is going to be early beta on PS4.
And they said some other PlayStation 4 special content.
Yeah.
So, kind of even just get into that real quick. I think it's probably, I would think Spider-Man related, maybe. Because, I don't know, it just kind of adds up they say...
Could you imagine if Spider-Man was exclusive to one console, though?
See, that's the thing. I don't know. There's the part where you find Avengers Tower in Spider-Man, and Spider-Man goes like, they must be on the West Coast, and that's like where the game starts. And to be fair,
like, they're claiming that that's just a happy coincidence.
Yeah.
Which, sure, probably.
Sure. Yeah. But it just how they said it in the press conference, like, it made the gears start going.
And this, from what they showed of it, it definitely towed the line, right? If the theme of this E3 was CG and nothing, I felt like this one towed the line a bit, because it was definitely more not gameplay than anything, but there were very clearly like a handful of shots from what they showed that were gameplay, right? It was like kind of spliced in there. They did show behind closed doors like full on demo of that section. So like they were showing it to people. This is coming out May 15th.
Not impressed.
I'm excited, but I really just like I feel like there's not much I can really say before seeing more. I'm hopeful, and it's totally like I'm down. Like I'm totally down for this, but I guess I was hoping to see a lot more. I was hoping to see whatever this behind closed doors demo was that I heard people talking about.
Yeah. So we got the cast reveal.
And that's actually the other thing I will say really quick. I know a lot of people have been talking about like, oh, they look bad. I'm totally cool with the way. Like I think Black Widow actually does look a little weird. Like just as like like if you divorce like the characters from the movie counterparts, right, and you just look at them as they are, like I actually am totally fine with the way almost all of them look. I think Black Widow just actually as a character model looks weird. Thor actually, yeah, Thor's face actually looks kind of strange too. That could use some work, but like Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk especially, I think looks really good.
A lot of people don't like how Captain America looks.
Yeah, I'm actually cool with it. Like I get that like it's a little strange seeing them, especially with, these are now characters that a lot of people have basically grown up with over the past like decade, and so it's totally weird to see them like outside of comic books, like any form that is pretty different and with voices that are different. Like I totally get that, but like I'm more than willing to like put that aside and just accept that this is its own thing, and I'm happy that it's its own thing.
So I'm somewhat disappointed by the cast reveal. Not to say that they're not good actors, but when I hear Nolan North sound like Nolan North, and I hear Troy Baker sound like Troy Baker, and I hear Laura Bailey sound like Laura Bailey,
sure,
it really is just kind of like
yeah,
a little bit,
sure.
And that takes it away a little bit, I was saying, like, I'm playing Gears 3, and like there's a gal who plays Chloe in the Uncharted games is also in this game, and it's like I just feel like all I'm hearing is that, and so I feel like when I play this, all I'm going to be hearing, like, yeah, there's Nathan Drake. Oh wait, that is the Hulk. I guess I'm supposed to be talking about the Hulk, but yeah, I don't know. They kind of had a little discussion with them, and there were a couple other cast members I don't really remember or recognize. But even just them talking about like, over the talking about just kind of obvious stuff about Avengers and these the backstory of these people, and we know. And then they brought out I think it's Bill Roseman who does a lot of stuff with Marvel and the publishing side for the games. That individually we're talking about each of the characters like as if we don't know who they are. It's just kind of it kind of dragged a little bit, and they didn't show a lot of interesting things, I guess I should say. We did get a tease for, I guess, Ant-Man at the very end.
Yeah.
And I guess more characters to be coming. But this seemed very live service-y in its reveal. But apparently maybe that's not so much the case.
It feels like, at least, again, listening to like the Easy Allies talk about their behind closed doors demo, it felt like something that might straddle the line. Like they definitely, the way they were talking about it sounds like something that they're planning to support indefinitely. They really emphasize the like free content updates, which is great. But hearing people talk about the way the game actually played, they did talk about like, hey, they are focusing on story, they're focusing on single player content, which is cool. I think it's why it's important that maybe hopefully soon, maybe Comic-Con, or I don't know, like maybe some other event in the next few months, they do show more of it, because if it is something that might straddle the line where it does have some games as a service stuff, but it's also like still focusing on single player, I think that's something that a lot of people might need convincing of. And I think you've got to show like this is how it's gonna work. This is what this game is. And again, like I was pretty excited by the things that I saw, but I don't think they did a good job of like telling the whole story and kind of setting expectations for what this game actually is. And instead, again, left it to games journalists or other websites to write up previews or talk on podcast and tell you what it is. Which is kind of a bummer. So
I very underwhelmed by the Avengers reveal.
Okay, so let's move on finally to Tuesday morning. Nintendo, as they're wont to do, saves E3.
Yes, they do. Sometimes every like 4 years they got one that knocks it out of the park.
Once every 4 years, the Nintendo aligns in the sky with the sun, and it everything comes together like magic. So the Nintendo Direct starts off with the first of two character reveals for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And this is the hero from Dragon Quest. Notably, like multiple different heroes from different Dragon Quest games, like Dragon Quest 11, Dragon Quest 8, 5, I believe 3 as well. They showed the like final smash for the Dragon Quest hero, and it is so good.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Mega Man one where they all come together.
It is so good.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. That's exciting. Led into that with a formal release date of September 27th with Dragon Quest XI S. From there, we go into Luigi's Mansion 3, which, Collin, this game, looking good.
You feeling gooigi about this one?
I'm feeling gooigi about it.
Yeah.
So it's coming out in 2019. It's actually one of the only 2019 games that we did not get a release date.
Yeah, very interesting. I was thinking about that afterwards.
I thought it was too. I feel like it's for sure October. That makes the most sense to me.
Yeah.
But I'm worried that like they only said 2019 because there's a chance it might get pushed back.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
Just like that's the one thing I'm hoping is not the case, but I guess we'll find out in a few months.
Mm-hmm.
So did you watch any of the like treehouse footage for this game that they showed?
A little bit, yeah.
So they showed like a demo, I think like 30 minutes or so of going through. So this game actually takes place not in a mansion but in a hotel. Which cool. And again, like it actually kind of follows up on some of my wishes for a Luigi's Mansion 3, which is localizing it to one location rather than multiple mansions. That was like a big thing. It's kind of going away from the mission structure. So they were showing like a specific floor of the hotel, and I think the setup is like as you're working your way up the hotel, each floor you got to defeat the boss and do something to get the elevator working again to be able to go up to the next floor. Right. And it seems like the implication, at least from the treehouse stuff, is that each floor is like themed a certain way. So they were on one that was like set up like a Hollywood studio, and you were like filming, or like one of the bosses, like instead of fighting it, you were helping it film like a TV show or something like that. So that's super cool. It seems really creative. The Guigi thing is specifically opens up co-op, but you can use like the ectoplasm basically of the ghost to spawn a Luigi out of Gooigi, and Gooigi can like squeeze through spikes unharmed and get to places that are typically out of reach for Luigi to like activate different levers and pull switches and things like that.
Yep.
So that's cool. I'm pretty amped up about it. What you might have to remind me, this seems vaguely
so this
there
was
was
something like Dark
I remember
Crystal
now. Yeah.
Something. I don't
know.
So man.
they're making a Dark Crystal Netflix show or movie or something. I think it's coming out relatively soon. I saw a trailer for it like a month ago. But they're making like a tactics game out of it. It's coming to Switch. So I don't know. Like cool. Yeah. So they showed more Link's Awakening. That is coming out September 20th. Which is actually a fair bit earlier than I expected. So, Colin, I'm curious to hear, I guess, what you think of what they showed. One of the new features that they demonstrated was a dungeon editor. Where basically, like, as you're exploring the world, you'll collect, like, pieces of dungeons, and that you can, like, go into, like, an editor and rearrange them to complete, like, challenges to get special items.
Yeah. I watched some of that because that was on, like, Treehouse Live. They had showed some of that also. It's seemed pretty much like some of the stuff we saw in the original trailer. Just it looks absolutely beautiful. I love the style of it. I will say that they had those like dioramas on the show floor, and there were some people who were like videotaping and taking shots of those, and like I would have thought it was like a like an episode where they're like, or like of like Boundary Break, where they're like moving the camera around and stuff. Like it looked like the game. Like when they were showing those dioramas, I was like, oh, this is just a weird camera angle. Like they're just zooming in really much on the game, and it's like, oh wait, no, this is like a diorama. You thought it was the game, but yeah, I think I might buy this.
Yeah.
I haven't bought too many Switch things, but I think this might be one that I do.
You should. It looks quite good.
Yeah.
Pretty excited.
Yeah.
Next up was actually a pretty cool announcement. So they started showing Trials of Mana, which is coming out early next year. But for context, I think it's important. So the Shadow dropped Collection of Mana, which is the 3 like Swords of Mana games, or they have different names, anyways. But one of which, or both, or I think it's the third one specifically, like never came over.
Right.
The second one is what we know of as Sword of Mana, which is like a co-op, single player or co-op action RPG that was on the Super Nintendo. Third one never was localized, and so they're localizing it, or they did. It's out now. But specifically, Trials of Mana is a remake of that. Like fully 3D, I think actually looks really good.
Does it look better than the Secret of Mana?
Yeah,
remake?
like it looks substantially better. And so that's the game that's coming out early next year. Like, so I'm pretty excited about that actually. Don't really have much else to say other than like it's cool to have that game finally localized.
Yeah, people are excited about it, which is cool.
Yeah. So Witcher 3 was confirmed for the Switch. That's coming out this year. It is the complete Witcher 3 package somehow on a Switch cart.
Yeah, on one cart where there was like the Resident Evil collection of like of remake and Resident Evil 0, and like, oh no, it's only one of them's on a Switch cart. You got to download the other, but then they're able to stick all of Witcher 3 on a cart. It's crazy.
It's insane.
Yeah.
So it shows some new footage for Fire Emblem 3 Houses. It's coming out in just a few weeks though, so not really much to add on that. Announced Resident Evil 5 and 6 coming out in the fall.
The best ones, obviously.
Yeah, wasn't there other Resident, or like how are those games already out?
4's already out, remake's out, 0's out. Yeah.
They had like a really goofy like commercial for it. Yeah,
and they were showing remake on there, and then they transitioned it to 5 and 6.
It was weird. Announced No More Heroes 3 for 2020. So that's cool. I've never played any of those games, but like I guess for fans, like I'm pretty excited for you.
Yeah, that was a good reveal of Travis Touchdown showing up.
Yeah,
for
I agree.
Yeah.
They had some Konami announcements.
Yeah.
So Contra Rogue Wars, which is out in September, and then Contra Anniversary Collection. I was gonna say, I thought it looked really bad.
It looked really rough. Like I don't want to start comparing like to like a PS2 game or whatever, but it seemed. I mean, obviously it's still in development, but it looked very incomplete.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So Daemon X Machina, we actually talked about this before, about whether it would get a release date or not. It did. It's out on September 13th.
Yep.
Awesome. And then out of nowhere, just out of nowhere, they dropped a Panzer Dragoon remake on us.
Yeah. Yep. Winter.
All right. Winter is coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got some new footage for Pokemon Sword and Shield. And also from that, for the Pokemon Sword and Shield Treehouse Live segment, we got some pretty big news dropped on us. They dropped a pretty big bomb on us. Colin, I don't know if you've been following this.
I think a little bit. I've heard of it.
So basically, we don't know. Prior to Sword and Shield, I think the Pokemon count is somewhere in the 800s at the moment. Total Pokemon. Sword and Shield, we don't know how many they're adding. And sometimes it varies. I think usually it's over 100. I think there was one gen that it was less than, but I don't know for sure. I'm not the expert on that. But generally speaking, I think over 100 typically is where it falls. So here we are. And one of the things they talked about is, and I think this is their reasoning for it, is that basically in making Sword and Shield, they weren't able to or didn't want to, or like it was too much work to make like and animate character models for every single Pokemon. That it was like they were talking about how like they used this opportunity as a chance to reevaluate how they wanted to move forward, and the choice they made was to basically like the Galar region is the new region for Sword and Shield. Basically, like and there's usually a national Pokedex and then a Pokedex related to the region of that generation, right? The national Pokedex is the one that would have all of them, and then the region would have like a specific subset of them. So the Galar region Pokedex, if the Pokemon is not in that Pokedex, you will not be able to carry that Pokemon over from other games. Let's say like Pokemon Home was something they just announced, right? Where it basically would be like the replacement for Pokemon Bank. So let's say Piplup, right? My favorite Pokemon. Let's say I have Piplup stored in my Pokemon Home Bank thing. But if Piplup isn't in the Galar region Pokedex, I cannot bring Piplup over.
Unbelievable.
And so, for a series that has lived off of this tagline of gotta catch 'em all, for the first time ever.
Yep, that's true.
In a mainline Pokemon game, you will not be able to catch every single Pokemon. Period.
I guess I never really thought about that, being like, oh, you gotta catch them all. Like, nope, not this time.
So, I'm not as angry about it as other people, and I don't really necessarily blame other people for being upset about it. Especially if you're someone who's, like, been playing every single one of these games and has... Let's say you have Pokemon that you've carried with you for several years now. Yeah, that's pretty upsetting. Here's like a couple of things. Like, we don't know who's made the cut and who hasn't. So that's one key piece of information we don't know. The other key piece of information is we don't know how many new Pokemon there's going to be in Sword and Shield.
Probably not 800.
Probably not 800. So that's the thing. I think for me, the key piece of information I want to know before these games come out is what is the list of Pokemon that will not be in this game, period. They won't be in it, and you won't be able to transfer them from other games. Like, I want to know who has not made the cut. I'm going to play these anyways. I'm still very excited for Sword and Shield. This is not as much of a game breaker for me as it is for other people. But at the same time, like, if Piplup's cut, like, that's a dagger.
Yeah.
At the same time, I expect a lot of the ones to not make the cut to be Pokemon that are maybe not as popular. Like, Charizard's in.
Right.
Without doubt. Like, no question about it. Charizard's made the cut. Pikachu's made the cut. But Garbodor.
Oh, obvious. No, you gotta put Garbodor in there. I mean, come on.
Or, like, the one that's, like, just a keychain. You know what I mean? Like, some of those, maybe not. But we'll see. Time will tell on that. The way I'm approaching it, though, is, like, I think, generally speaking, I never, past, like, the first one or two gens, I've never really made a conscious effort to get all of them. Typically, I try to focus more on the new Pokemon. So I'm trying to approach it from this, like, level of, like, yeah, sure, I'd like to have Piplup, or I'd like to have Pikachu or Charmander or whoever. But I also mostly want to focus on catching the new Pokemon. Because it's a new game, new gen, I want to focus on what's new. But that's just me. Like, that's a different approach from other people, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think you said that all needs to be said. I
Great.
100% agree.
Great. So Astral Chain, it's coming out August 30th. Again, just some new footage.
Yep.
Did you watch any of the Treehouse stuff for this game?
Don't think I did on this one.
Oh, man. Like, I feel like the trailers have been selling this game short. Which is saying a lot, because those trailers have looked really good.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend going back and watching. They had set, like, 2 or 3 sections each day, or, like, 1 section each day, on this game showing different aspects of it. Because like ultimately one of the characters, like the character you're playing as, is a police officer, and so you're doing like investigations. You're walking around this like open world, doing tasks for different people. Like the combat itself is like pretty. There's like some pretty crazy depth to it. There's like training rooms you can go into. It seems, and even story wise, like it seems so much more than what the trailers were letting on. I wouldn't be able to do it justice, but I would, for you, Colin, I would recommend at least going and watching like one or like if not all of them, because they are like 30 minutes each, I think, but watch one or two of them, because those trailers have not been showing the full picture, and the full picture is really, really exciting. Like,
good.
Yeah. Colin, what did you think of Empire of Sin?
I never would have thought the next John Romero game that would show up at a Nintendo Direct. This is like a top-down, I guess it's, I don't want to say Diablo, but like kind of top-down shooter kind of thing. Apparently it takes place during like the start of Prohibition, coming out spring 2020. Fine. I think it's a Paradox or Focus Home Interactive, one of those two, which is kind of like a, you know, double A, I guess I would say, maybe publisher kind of thing. Sure, fine.
Right.
It
definitely felt very like all right, okay.
Yeah.
But I saw I saw people on Twitter that I followed like either see it on the show floor and get very excited about it. And like I didn't understand, but I'm like, all right, well maybe there's something more to it that I didn't see in the trailer. Showed Ultimate Alliance 3 again. That's coming out soon. There's an expansion pass or something.
Yeah. I don't remember. It's like specifically themed on like Avengers or Fantastic Four or X-Men. I think stuff like that.
Cool. So Cadence of Hyrule. Not quite a shadow drop, but it was announced for a June 13th date, so like 2 days later. I have played and completed that game.
Nice.
Colin, that is definitely going to be somewhere in my top 5 games of the year.
Nice.
Without a doubt. It is very good.
Good.
Yeah, we should talk more about that game, because I'm probably going to play through it at least one more time as Zelda. But yeah, on another podcast, I'll talk more about that game because I have a lot to say about it. Otherwise, like if you haven't, you should play it. People should play that game. And if you're unsure if you would like it or not, I think Crypto the Necrodancer sale might be over now, but it was on sale for pretty cheap. So like if you can find that for cheap and play it, it's that style of gameplay. But I will say, with Cadence of Hyrule, you can switch modes so that you don't have to be on rhythm with the beat.
Oh, nice.
So there is an option to not do that. And so it actually kind of changes the feel of the game. It feels a bit almost more puzzle-like because you're playing it more like a roguelike. And so even enemies are moving in turn with you. And it's kind of cool because having to focus on keeping the beat, you don't focus as much on the fact that you are playing as Link and you do have a lot of different tools. And so I generally was like just using the same thing over and over again, whereas not playing along with the rhythm gives me a chance to assess the fact that I have a boomerang and bombs and arrows and other things that I could use at any given time. So I'll talk more about that later on. They announced a new Mario and Sonic at the Olympics. Because of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, super excited. Ready to watch Amy Rose do a pole vault.
Yep. And next up, in the most disappointing news of E3, Animal Crossing New Horizons has been pushed back to March 20th, 2020. I guess technically it only had 2019 as a date. But they did show it. They showed gameplay. It was featured quite a bit on the Treehouse live stream. I don't know if you watched any of it, but they did show some gameplay, like 20-30 minutes of footage from it.
Okay.
I think it looks just swell.
And they showed footage on the Treehouse, but I don't think that was a playable game at E3. I don't think
it was not playable. No.
Yeah.
And one thing I do want to mention, I don't know if you read this. So in an interview after the fact, Nintendo talked about the reason why they pushed Animal Crossing to next year is because they didn't want to force their developers to crunch.
Right.
Especially in the past few months, as this has been a growing topic of discussion, and more reports of other like major AAA studios have, like reports about those studios having like really bad crunch cultures. It's actually really nice to hear like a different kind of story about crunch. And so I don't know, it's disappointing that Animal Crossing is not coming out this year. However, I am actually like, it was really nice to hear, and I'm totally cool with, delays happening if it means that that team doesn't have to crunch really hard to get that game out.
Yeah. I heard a little bit of disappointment though for this game.
Really?
I guess some people I had heard people talking that they thought it was too much like Stardew Valley and not like Animal Crossing, I guess. I don't really know. I haven't played either of those really. So I don't really know.
I mean, those two games are like, they're pretty similar already.
Okay.
So I don't know. I'd have to go back and watch and see if there's anything specific I picked up. That didn't jump out to me. I thought what I saw looked really good.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. I am, in general, bummed out, but at the same time, like, I'm totally cool with them taking their time, especially given the reason. Like,
right.
That's
sure.
fine by me.
Yeah.
After that, we did get a couple other like just quick announcements. So Ni no Kuni Remastered, which I mentioned earlier, is coming out in September. The key thing to note is, so the Switch version is basically identical to the PS3, the original version.
Okay.
Whereas the one that's coming out for PS4 and Xbox is like 4K remastered, bells and whistles.
Gotcha.
Ni no Kuni, the first game, is a phenomenal game. I adore it. It was my game of the year it came out. I love that game. Ni no Kuni 2, not as much. However, apparently they Level 5, I saw somewhere earlier today, even like an interview that Level 5 confirmed that they're making another Ni no Kuni game.
Oh, okay.
Which cool. And there's also a Ni no Kuni movie being made. I haven't seen, there's a trailer for it, came out a couple days ago. Haven't watched it. That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm down. So Alien Isolation is coming to the Switch later this year. That is also an excellent game. I don't know if you ever played it.
Did not, no.
You should. It's good. I really
Maybe
like
I'll play
that
it on
game a lot.
Switch at 30 frames.
Yeah.
And 720p. I don't
Do
know.
it. Play it on the bus. It's great.
Yeah.
And then new Super Lucky's Tale is coming out in the fall on the Switch.
Yeah, I like how we had Lucky's Tale on Oculus, then we had Super Lucky's Tale on Xbox One, and now we have new Super Lucky's Tale.
It's funny that new is the
Yeah.
Nintendo version.
Yeah. That's cool. That's kind of a game I've wanted to play.
Yeah.
And so I was actually that's actually one of the Treehouse Live segments that I watched was on this.
When I got my Xbox, it was one of the first games I downloaded and played.
Yeah. One I'd want to play, not sure. Switch, maybe hoping for a PS4 release, but if not, I have to switch it up.
Yep. So we do have two last things for Nintendo's Direct.
Yeah, just one mainly.
Two pretty crazy, actually, to be honest. So the first one might be one of my favorite Smash Brothers reveals. So it's Donkey, it's Diddy Kong, it's Cranky Kong. They're just chilling out.
Nah, it's K. Rool.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
You're right. K. Rool. So it's Donkey Kong, Diddy Kong, and K. Rool. They're chilling out. And then what happens, Colin?
So to take it back a little bit, went to bed pretty late that Monday. Stayed up real late watching Square Enix because there's kind of a lot of bloat in the middle of that. I'll say. So get to work, 8 o'clock, and I requested time off to basically go home and watch the Nintendo Direct and then go back to work later.
That's funny.
And man, I was so tired. I was really tired, and watching this Nintendo Direct, I'm actually pretty enjoying it. It's pretty great. And for some reason, when they show the trio, the rare trio, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just tired, man. And I am not even thinking about the thing that's getting ready to happen. But man, I see that Jiggy bounce by, and I just lost my mind. And they do the fake out like they did for K. Rool, this time with the Duck Hunt dog. And I know that, like, haha, it's just a fake out. They're gonna show them, and then Banjo and Kazooie are raring to go. Cue beautiful Grant Kirkhope remix of Spiral Mountain, and just the most beautiful redesign of Banjo and Kazooie I could ever dream for.
They look so good.
They look so phenomenal. I didn't like that blocky 360 redesign for Nuts and Bolts.
Yeah.
I wasn't really a fan of that. Just that, like, white in Banjo's eyes as well. It looks like, even with a part where, like, he jumps and he's like, whee, like that. Just the sound effects, the moves, people are breaking it down with his, what moves are what, and stuff from Banjo-Kazooie and then Banjo-Tooie. I was so happy, and I'm willing to say I love video games and I love E3, but I think this might be my favorite reveal ever, watching E3. A lot of reveals I'm happy, but I'm really happy for other people, and, like, I think it's great. Like Final Fantasy VII, like, I hadn't played that game, but, like, oh my gosh, that's a huge reveal, like, that's so crazy. Or Resident Evil 7 when that got revealed, but nothing personally has given me so much joy from an E3 reveal than Banjo-Kazooie in Smash. I'm smiling just thinking about it. I literally just have nothing else to say.
It felt like cathartic almost. Like, it was for me, it was one of those reveals that, like, I think leading up to E3 we'd heard enough, like, rumors and people whispering about it that, like, it was almost expected.
Yeah.
But it didn't necessarily take away from the impact of it.
Fantastic trailer. Just the way they showed it.
Oh, it's definitely, like, it's one of the best, like, Smash Brothers reveals, like the fake out and everything, every part of it.
Even the part at the end where K. Rool is falling off the building and he slams into the ground, the boulder falls down. Like, that is the exact end of Banjo-Kazooie, where Gruntilda falls off the mountain and the boulder falls on top of her. Like, just and they even have like, Gruntilda has like a character model that's, like, flying around Spiral Mountain. It's so good.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And then how else do you follow that up than by announcing a sequel to Breath of the Wild? Because of course.
Yeah, that was a weird thing, and I think they'd maybe mentioned that, like, it's gonna start being a little darker, maybe, or more focused on narrative.
So they're like, we got one more thing to show you, and the trailer rolls, and at first I'm like, there's no way they're gonna do, like, a Metroid thing, right? Like, I even thought, like, oh, maybe there actually is, like, a 2D Metroid that we don't know about.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, because, like, obviously with everything that's happened with Prime, we're totally not seeing Metroid Prime 4 for, like, a while. Next year, maybe.
That, Fusion remake they teased at the end of Samus Returns.
Right. So part of me thought, like, oh, maybe it's that, like, very, very briefly, and then like, it becomes kind of apparent relatively early on in that trailer that, oh, it's Breath of the Wild, and I don't think there was for a second that I thought it was, like, an expansion or more DLC. Like, I think pretty quickly I just was like, this is actually a sequel.
Yeah.
Which is exciting, and that's, like, and they have talked about it being more dark. Even that trailer, like, the end of that trailer is, like, pretty intense.
Yeah, where it's like the old. I didn't play Breath of the Wild, but it's like one of the castles, like, rising up.
It's Hyrule Castle.
Is that Hyrule Castle?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. But it's also, like, people think it's Ganon, or potentially Ganon, like, that, like, kind of skeletal figure in the way it, like, moves and grabs at them at the end, and some of the other crazy stuff going on, like that. Yeah, like, you can see the Calamity in there as well that controls Ganon in Breath of the Wild, or I don't know if that's the correct wording necessarily, but
heard that name before. I guess I don't know.
Yeah,
like Calamity. Is this next year? Is this fall? Is this fall 2020?
I do wonder, like, maybe this actually is closer than we think. Because for a while, I've thought, like, mainline Zeldas have become a thing where they're, like, once every 5 years.
Yeah.
But if they really are, like, and one of the things they talked about is they had so many ideals for DLC that they were like, let's just make a sequel. And so the fact that they are reusing the same world, they're probably going to be some assets reused. Probably, like, not necessarily, I hesitate to make the comparison, but it probably, if it's in the vein of, like, Ocarina of Time, the Majora's Mask, then yeah, maybe we actually do see a much shorter development cycle, and maybe it is something that could be out later next year. And if that's the case, then, like, oh my god, like, that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, of course, people are comparing it to, like, this Majora's Mask kind of style turnaround, which I'm perfectly fine with.
I am as well.
Majora's Mask is a fantastic game. One
of the best Zelda game.
Besides Wind Waker, obviously. Yeah. That's what I love about that series. You just there's so many, like, everybody's got a favorite. Like, every Zelda game is somebody's favorite. Which is great.
Maybe except for the DS ones, but yes.
Yeah, Spirit Tracks is pretty good. Phantom Hourglass, maybe not so much, but
so that's crazy. I don't think I ever in a million years would have expected them to announce Breath of the Wild 2 or whatever they'll call it.
Yeah.
At
so
E3.
soon, even.
So that was E3.
Yeah.
That happened. So really quick, I think you and I probably agree on this. I feel like Nintendo had the best show.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
By a good margin. But I want to run down just really briefly, just a few thoughts on each one. Takeaways. So starting with, we'll just skip EA because
rest in peace, Anthem.
Yeah. So Microsoft, what are your takeaways?
I want to say I think last year's conference was stronger in a way. I thought that DMC5 reveal was, like, so fantastic last year. I feel like they had some other stuff as well that just this year's stuff just didn't hit as well. And I think they spent too much time, and like I talked about before, they spent too much time on things they didn't need to show or talk. I mean, they talked too much about, like, they brought people out for the Lego Forza Horizon 4 stuff when they could have shown, like, Gears 5 footage. There were some of the games like Spiritfarer and Way of the Woods and the Adventures or the Legend of Wright RPG Time. I felt like they could have condensed those, like, together more rather than, like, each individual separate one. So I feel like there was a lot of, like, I don't want to say wasted time, but it kind of felt like that. So I was kind of disappointed just kind of the layout and structure how Microsoft went.
Yeah. So I think I definitely agree with that. This is, I think it's still a solid press conference, but not, I don't think not up to what they've been doing recently. Yeah. Feels like a slight misstep. I think my key takeaway is, they've recently been talking about, like, we're going to show 65 games, or we're going to show 50, or, some big number. Yeah. Right. And I think this was the year that it actually kind of hurt them rather than help them. Yeah. Because I think it was just too much. I feel like maybe dialing it back from 65 to 40 or 45, and maybe just spending more time with some stuff, giving some time for Gears 5 to breathe, and actually showing what that game is. Because certainly you should be able to have something to show for that game if it's coming out in September. It's like it's still a lot of cool announcements, a lot of things to be excited about, and a totally fine and solid showing. But I think over the past couple years they've been building this momentum, and it felt like they didn't take full advantage of it this year.
Yeah, and again, it might be part of that, kind of hype that we dove into it. Oh, Microsoft could get all these different partners because Sony's not going to be there, whatnot.
For sure. Moving on to Bethesda. Takeaways.
Rest in peace, Quake Champions. Something they've talked about pretty much every show they've been at, I think. E3, but this is one where I think they've just kind of let it go. I still really like Bethesda. The Fallout 76 stuff. Yeah, the crowd for stuff as simple as like, yeah, we got we got computer NPCs. That was like a huge like thing for people. I Ghostwire Tokyo, good. Deathloop, I want to see something on. Doom Eternal was definitely the big thing you wanted to show up for. Doom Eternal.
Definitely agree with you on that. And one thing I do want to add is Bethesda, what did Commander Keen ever do to you? So Ubisoft, anyway, takeaways from Ubisoft.
I thought it was the Tom Clancy
hour
basically. I thought I've really enjoyed Ubisoft showings. Pretty much since like Aisha Tyler took over, and then like even to like up to now last year. I always thought Ubisoft had great showings, but this year was pretty disappointed.
It was pretty boring, I think, overall.
Yeah, and pretty much other than the Watch Dogs Legion stuff, everything else I just really did not care for. And then even when the Gods and Monsters things happened, I was kind of interested. And then it was like transitioned right into the Rainbow Six Siege Invitational thing. I was like, that was it?
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah.
I have nothing to add on that. So Square Enix.
I think you should have flopped Marvel's Avengers and Final Fantasy VII Remake in the conference, because I think Final Fantasy VII Remake certainly looks better and would have had the bigger reveal, I think, at the end. A lot of bloat in the center. A friend and I were watching. Again, it was just getting late.
Yeah.
When they started getting into the Square Enix, like Music Service, Kingdom Hearts 3, Dying Light 2, Romancing Saga, like cool announcements, I guess, for stuff that, we hadn't heard about before, but really started to just drag. And then with it ending with kind of the, I don't want to use the word letdown, but, not as big an impact as what Marvel's Avengers had.
Yeah.
Was kind of a disappointing conference towards the end. But Final Fantasy VII Remake looking pretty good.
I think generally speaking, I'm actually really excited about a lot of the stuff Square Enix showed. And I do agree with you on, maybe dragging a little bit in the middle, and Avengers maybe not being as big of a splash as it should be. But at the same time, it was the conference I didn't want to end.
Like I felt the same way, though. Yeah,
those little portraits and showing a new thing. I just wanted to keep going.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
But when it's all said and done, Final Fantasy VII Remake looks, it looks perfect. Like it's everything I wanted to. I have no words. I'm thrilled with how that game looks, and I could not be more excited. March, please come soon.
Yep. And
finally, Nintendo.
Nintendo, the only company that seems to release games in 2019, but I'm sure. Great stuff. Great showing all around. There was some stuff like Mario and Sonic, Empire of Sin, the Resident Evil 5 and 6 stuff was kind of like, what? But pretty much everything else was really great. Even, it's a pretty good conference when they announce something like Ni no Kuni Remastered, Alien Isolation, and New Super Lucky's Tale. Like, they announced that in a sizzle reel for their conference. You're like, man, like, there's even more stuff they didn't even put in here. Again, it's every few years we get a really great Nintendo E3 showing, and I think this is one of them for sure.
Yeah, I think this is definitely one of the better Nintendo Directs for E3 in a while. One of the stronger ones. And again, I think it reiterates something that we were talking about in our pre-E3 show, is that the rest of the year for the Switch is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
There is so much, like basically every month for the remainder of the year. I guess December withstanding, because usually not a lot comes out then.
Could be Luigi, maybe. I don't know.
It could be. But yeah, like it's just stacked. And then they can also tack on like a couple other things that are either 2020 or beyond, in the fact that we could potentially be looking at a new Zelda game, maybe even as soon as late next year. All of that stuff is super exciting. Everything they showed looks really good. They showed gameplay, they went in depth on things, and they had their Treehouse Live where they went even further in depth on some of these games, and all of it just showed really well.
Everything looked different, nothing looked the same. Just great variety through different amounts of games.
And all of this in a year, in an E3 that just was dead set on not showing us gameplay, Nintendo like just blew the doors open on that.
Right.
And it showed.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Collin, thank you, as always, for joining me in this endeavor to spend several hours recapping E3.
It's always a great fun time. I enjoy E3. It's good to feel like E3's been over for a few weeks, but it's like, oh, it's good to revisit it one last time.
It feels like ages, but yeah, it is good.
Yeah.
It is good to revisit. And it's also nice to like. I know this was kind of a downer year maybe for E3, but I look forward to 2020, and I look forward to the future, knowing that like next year, by all accounts, unless something crazy happens, which is always possible. Next year is going to be new consoles. Next year it's going to be a larger focus on that and showing games for the next generation, ideally. And I'm hoping / thinking that just inherently is going to make it a much more exciting E3, and hopefully one that we're going to see a lot more actual games rather than what is that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I think that's going to do it for us. Collin, thank you as always.
Oh, thank you, Curtis.
We'll be back here in a couple weeks to chat about some video games and keep this train a rolling until Luigi's Mansion just comes and steals me away.
Ika Boka.